Thousands of scarlet spores floated out from the blooming giant blood-red flower, drifting through the sky like floating willow catkins, presenting a tragic image of the apocalypse. Upon spotting a target, they instantly accelerated, launching a cold and lethal attack. The silent university town erupted in chaos. The entire university was suddenly engulfed in a sea of blood red. The royal city thought the mutated creatures were terrifying enough, but did not anticipate such a transformation. What ancient virus could turn a perfectly fine potted plant into something like this? The royal city was unaware that right in front of him, a mutated entity parasitized by the scarlet spores seemed to have gained sight, its body convulsing violently before it crazily charged towards him. Without hesitation, the royal city accelerated, directly crashing into the creature, repeating the process and crushing its head. However, a more bizarre scene unfolded. Although the balloon-like tumor of its head was crushed, the mutated being was still alive, clinging to the royal city's warship with its broken limbs, raising its bloody head and desperately slamming against the carriage. The ripples of the energy-absorbing armor spread out, and the royal city's expression changed. He reversed, creating distance, accelerated, and crushed back and forth until the parasitized entity finally lay still. Yet, even in stillness, something seemed to be flowing beneath its skin, as if living creatures were writhing within. Its skin visibly shrank, and tendrils emerged, twisting like snakes or nematodes, burrowing in and out of its body. It seemed to have become soil and nutrients. The parasitism granted it a stronger vitality. The mutated entity had died, its tumor-like head shattered, but the spores had already spread, grown, and permeated its entire being. One energy point from killing the mutated entity was recorded, yet it still twisted and struggled. The royal city felt a chill, noticing on the infrared thermal radar that dense red dots were approaching. This indicated numerous parasitized creatures. Although the mutated entities were terrifying, they lacked vision and were quite sluggish. As long as he was careful and maintained a distance of no more than 10 meters, they might not detect him. However, the situation on the field changed. After being parasitized by those scarlet spores, these mutated entities seemed to have become unified and frenzied, regaining the ability to sense their surroundings, instantly able to detect living beings nearby and chase them down. Moreover, as they ran, it was visibly apparent that beneath their distorted skin, blood-red tendrils and branches were writhing, parasitizing and growing within their bodies like insects. The trend of their scarlet spores is crazily seeking other targets through these mutated forms and humans. It seems to be an infinite impulse of biological reproduction, desperately parasitizing and increasing its own population. At this time, Wang Qing couldn't care less about keeping quiet. The Level 1 battleship directly reversed into the storage, relying on its powerful armor to crash into the front entrance of the dormitory building. He jumped out of the vehicle, glanced at the swarm of approaching monsters, and while running upstairs, he roared, "Su Xinghai, Zhang Chao, come down. Hurry up." Inside the dormitory building, there were bursts of roars. The hurried footsteps were coming from upstairs. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were not foolish. They had noticed the giant flowers blooming in the distant cafeteria and observed the terrifying parasitic state of the scarlet spores. Su Xinghai made a decisive decision. There was no time to discuss with Wang Cheng. The two quickly packed all the supplies from room 703 and headed downstairs to meet Wang Cheng, running as fast as they could. At that moment, they coincidentally met Wang Cheng, saving a lot of time. Wang Cheng glanced over and noticed that Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were loaded with all sorts of items, including a large bedsheet that had rolled up the things that couldn't fit. Clothes, medicines, food, and even some toy guns of Wang Cheng's were all there, presenting a complete picture of a desperate escape. Wang Cheng felt a sense of relief. These supplies were their lifeline. Taking as much as they could was undoubtedly the best choice. At this moment, other survivors hiding on different floors of the boys' dormitory could no longer sit still and began to flee, panicking and choosing paths at random. Su Xinghai grabbed Wang Cheng and said, "We need to find a vehicle. Otherwise, with so many supplies, we will be dragged down." "I found one," Wang Cheng replied directly, pulling Su Xinghai and the others to run downstairs, pointing to his mini version of a Level 1 battleship. Upon seeing the vehicle, Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were stunned. "Brother, I know the situation is urgent, but can you find a reliable car?" Zhang Chao wailed. Wang Cheng kicked him directly. "This car is really powerful. Get in quickly. The parasitic monsters outside are about to break in." Having a vehicle was better than not having one at all. Although Su Xinghai frowned at the car Wang Cheng found, he opened the door immediately. This vehicle also became the target for other survivors to snatch. A group of survivors hiding on the 4th floor, who had managed to survive thanks to Wang Cheng and the others clearing the mutated forms in the dormitory, also began to rush down. Seeing Wang Cheng opening the car door to stuff supplies inside, they desperately charged forward to compete for it. Su Xinghai changed color and pushed the first guy in front to the ground. Another guy seeing this became completely enraged. "You think you're tough just because you have guns? I'll stab you to death." With that, he pulled out a fruit knife from his pocket and lunged at Su Xinghai's chest. But he didn't succeed. Wang Qing kicked him from the side. With the boost from the strength-type special serum, Wang Qing's kick sent the guy flying a meter away, breaking his ribs and causing him to spit blood. Zhang Chao was terrified, his face pale, and then he erupted in rage, pulling out his gun from his waist. Without us, how could you have survived all these days? You still want to kill us? You're incapable yourself. Too scared to even go outside? Naturally, things are getting worse for you. Before Zhang Chao could finish, Su Xinghai pressed his head down and shoved him into the car. As the person involved, he seemed to show little anger, only turning his head to look outside the dormitory building. Wang Cheng, let's run. Wang Cheng glanced back, equally terrified. Outside the dormitory, there were over 30 grotesque creatures, their heads swollen like tumors, gathering in hordes at the narrow entrance of the dormitory. They surged forward, and at that moment, if they didn't escape, they would be trapped and killed. Wang Cheng no longer hesitated, got into the car, and roared the engine to life. The infrared thermal radar blared alarms, and the red dots on the screen nearly merged into a mass. Wang Cheng activated the kinetic absorption armor and accelerated, crashing into two of the grotesque creatures, bursting out of the dormitory at high speed. Su Xinghai sat in the passenger seat, while Zhang Chao was squeezed in the back with a pile of supplies. He turned to look back, and behind him, the blood-colored creatures with balloon-like heads were swarming in, devouring the survivors who couldn't escape in time. Terrifyingly, as those survivors died, they too would be parasitized, growing massive blood-colored tumors on their heads, staggering to their feet. A similar scene was unfolding between the two dormitory buildings. A tide of blood swept over Haicheng University. Wang Cheng saw shadowy figures everywhere, terrifying monsters with tumor-covered heads. Among them were both grotesque creatures and living humans. Even some survivors on the higher floors of the dormitory buildings couldn't escape, their bodies mutated, resembling madness. And they leaped from heights of 7 or 8 stories, crashing down to the ground. The survivors in both buildings were desperately trying to escape. In the girls' dormitory, many survivors rushed out in a frenzy, not trying to run faster than the monsters, but simply faster than their companions. A girl, blood-soaked, even lunged at Wang Cheng's car window, frantically pounding and screaming, "Help me! Please save me!" Zhang Chao shouted, pointing at her neck. She has been parasitized. On the back of her neck, a fleshy ball was pulsating, with tendril-like vines spreading wildly into her body, yet she seemed oblivious to it. Wang Cheng accelerated, leaving the girl behind. In a horrifying glance back, he saw a wave of blood chasing them, hundreds and thousands. If they had still been in the dormitory, they likely would have been trapped and killed. Chapter 24, Can You Bump Me? The sky darkened, and the blood-red haze enveloping Haicheng University seemed to take them back to the first day of the apocalypse. The terrifying scarlet spores were breeding wildly, and towards the direction of the university cafeteria, a massive blood-red flower was blooming vigorously, a horrifying plant that had long surpassed biological limits, growing uncontrollably. Monsters are everywhere, and so are the fleeing survivors. Those hidden survivors have all been forced out. In this situation, no matter how terrified one is, there is no way to hide in the same place anymore. One must rush out and run. Otherwise, staying at the university would mean waiting for death. Wang Cheng glanced back, his heart sinking. He once thought that such mutations would only involve some aberrant forms or mutated creatures, but just a few days into the apocalypse, such terrifying beings have already emerged, far exceeding his understanding of monsters. How could such things possibly exist on Earth? Wang Cheng had believed that he could use the boys' dormitory as a base to cautiously develop and gradually eliminate the mutated forms. There were at least thousands of these creatures at the university, possibly even tens of thousands. Wang Cheng had optimistically thought that as long as he had enough time and resources, he could complete the extermination here, achieving initial development and at least upgrading his warship to a certain form. However, at this moment, the 703 dormitory was already left behind, and Wang Cheng was desperately fleeing. He suddenly realized how naive he had been. This was reality, and it was bloody. While games might have fixed monster patterns, everything in this apocalyptic reality was changing rapidly. The apocalypse was fierce. This was not a joke. If everything were that simple, the armed forces would have long since stormed the university town to save everyone. Yet, in recent days, even the sound of gunfire had become sparse. Wang Cheng understood that this situation might be far more complicated than he had imagined. The world had become strange and extremely terrifying. Outside the university, who knows what other terrifying creatures lurked, casting shadows of fear. In the apocalypse, no one is truly free. The monsters chasing behind him were gradually left behind as Wang Cheng picked up speed, rushing through the campus towards the nearest exit, gate number 2. Scarlet spores were spreading everywhere, parasitizing wildly. It was easy to imagine that soon this place would become their domain, with any other creatures meeting only one fate: to become nutrients for the progeny of the giant tree in the cafeteria. He had to leave the university. He had to get out of here. Other areas of the university, away from the exits, had about 2-meter-high fences. Wang Cheng wasn't prepared to crash through them. Although his warship had tough armor and an impact-resistant module, he wasn't at the point of recklessly crashing around just yet. Moreover, he had just discovered something. Using the kinetic energy absorption armor module seemed to accelerate energy consumption. And given that a level 1 warship already consumed more energy than a level 0-1 in just a short time, the 1/3 energy he had left was now less than 1/5. Indeed, as a technological module, how could it not consume energy? This Wuling warship shared a common energy system for all its systems, so the consumption was directly reflected. Therefore, Wang Cheng decided to leave the school through gate number 2. However, the situation inside the university was not optimistic. Many mutated forms and humans had already been parasitized. The mutated beings are concerning, having already transformed into monsters themselves. But those who have been parasitized appear terrifying. With a massive head swollen like a giant balloon, they chase after other humans with bloody bodies, running through the campus. The scene is both frenzied and absurd, infused with a thread of desperate bleakness. Screams echo everywhere, and people are fleeing in all directions. In this moment, distinctions between good and bad students, handsome and beautiful individuals, teachers and students vanish. Before the monster, everyone is desperately trying to escape. The monster does not care who you are. It lunges forward with claws flailing, tearing its victims apart. In this world of despair, some reveal the darker side of humanity, pushing their companions toward the monster to save themselves, while others exhibit admirable flashes of humanity, sacrificing themselves to divert the monster for their companions' escape. The bloodshed and cruelty of humanity seem concentrated within the confines of this small university, vividly displayed in a brief yet intense manner. Xinghai and Zhang Chao fell silent. They had been in the boys' dormitory for days, without truly witnessing the brutality and bloodshed outside. At this moment, their feelings were mixed and indescribable. The vast human civilization seemed to have collapsed overnight. As Wang Cheng drove forward, more survivors gathered around them, all preparing to escape through gate number 2. Some ran on foot, others desperately pedaled bicycles, and some drove cars. The campus was filled with vehicles, even buses, which, if started successfully, would greatly increase their chances of survival. Survivors displayed their resourcefulness as they congregated at gate number 2, rushing out in a chaotic mass. However, as many survivors gathered, the monsters also converged, densely packed, with hundreds or thousands pursuing them. Those at the back pushed forward desperately, while those at the front fought to escape. The once spacious gate now felt narrow, becoming a lifeline fiercely contested by countless individuals. Some were trampled to death, and vehicles collided violently. Others, in a frenzy, attempted to jump over the fence, but it was too high. One person, while climbing, was impaled, and although they made it to the other side, their insides spilled out. Crying out in agony, unable to stand. Many were killed by the monsters, but just as many perished in the chaos. As the apocalypse erupted, Wang Cheng had never seen so many living people at once. At this moment, they all emerged, desperately fleeing for their lives. With bloodshed behind them, Wang Cheng also found himself blocked. In the distance, he spotted a convoy at the forefront, nearly exiting the university town. This convoy had managed to procure 2 school buses. With a poised woman standing on the roof, Chenlon, whom he had seen earlier. It was the student council's convoy. Their large numbers allowed them to work together during this mass escape, exhibiting a stronger survival capability than scattered individuals. At this moment, they were leading the way, almost out. At this moment, Wang Cheng and the others were relatively safe. Although the chaos behind them was intense, their current position was in the middle of the fleeing crowd, allowing them to move forward gradually. Behind them, more monsters and survivors were converging, indistinguishable from one another. Su Xinghai stared intently at the massive blood-red flower in the distance, feeling a sense of dread as he said, "Fortunately, its crimson spores have already dispersed in waves. Otherwise, if they fell from the sky now with so many of us here, we would probably be wiped out in an instant." The convoy surged forward, with Wang Cheng and his companions caught in the flow. Their seemingly unimpressive Wuling vehicle had become a target for many, as several survivors crawled over from both sides, desperately pounding on their windows, demanding that they get out of the car. Wang Cheng remained silent and directly pulled out his handgun from his jacket. The expressions of those people changed, filled with doubt and disbelief, questioning whether Wang Cheng's gun was real. However, at that moment, a tremendous commotion erupted from behind them, and the crowded convoy and throngs of people suddenly scattered. The number of monsters surged, and a towering, 5-meter-tall blood-red creature was howling its way from the depths of the dark university town, tearing through the crowd and scattering the fleeing masses in disarray. The frantic crowd was in a mad rush to escape, and those with vehicles accelerated desperately. As a result, the blocked throngs parted slightly, and Wang Cheng also accelerated instantly. horrified to discover that the giant blood-red monster was chasing directly in his direction. In their direction, several vehicles went wild, speeding up frantically. Just then, Wang Cheng's vehicle suddenly shook as a nearby Land Rover crashed into it. The driver, a man in his 40s wearing glasses, was visibly panicked and terrified, clearly on the verge of losing his mind. He stared at Wang Cheng and the others, screaming, "You trash cars and trash people, just wait to die. Only elites like me deserve to live." Saying this, he slammed his vehicle into Wang Cheng's car, clearly trying to topple it to attract the pursuing blood-red giant behind him and buy himself some time to escape, sacrificing others for his own gain. But Wang Cheng merely sneered, allowing the other vehicle to collide. What a joke. So what if it was a Land Rover? To an observer, it might look like a Wuling Mini, but in reality, it was comparable to a light armored vehicle. Could a civilian car like that possibly move him? Chapter 25. A Gallop into the Distance. The middle-aged man in the Land Rover wore a fierce expression. His mind was consumed by fear. As the massive blood-red creature drew closer, he was desperate to survive, but with the surrounding congestion, he couldn't accelerate. Even if he was willing to crash into others and vehicles, he had no way to break through because there were too many people and cars. The only solution he could think of was to let others die for him. Wang Cheng's small car instantly became his target. The middle-aged man clearly saw that Wang Cheng's vehicle seemed to be just an ordinary two-seater, barely accommodating 3 people, belonging to the very light category. And the materials of its body appeared quite ordinary. His vehicle, with a solid chassis and heavy weight, was far superior to the small, shabby car of the other party. As the saying goes, one should pick on the soft targets, and he set his sights on Wang Cheng and his companions, planning to use the advantage of his vehicle to directly ram into them. 3 people should provide enough distraction for that giant blood-red monster for a while. By then, he could escape. With this thought in mind, the middle-aged man with glasses showed no hesitation and drove straight at them. To alleviate his fear and guilt, he rolled down the window and angrily shouted at the 3 students in the other vehicle. As he yelled, he even convinced himself he was justified. He was a professor at a school, wealthy, with a wife and children, a true social elite, far superior to these insignificant university students. Even in such times, if he survived, he could still contribute to humanity with his research and technology, much more than these ignorant students could. Trading their lives for his elite existence was their honor. Yes, it was an honor. The middle-aged man's face showed a self-deceiving sense of relaxation as he desperately turned the steering wheel, yelling as he aimed to hit Wang Cheng's vehicle, looking for an angle to flip them over. Die, die. For me. For an elite like me, die. The middle-aged man was confident. How could his vehicle not overturn a shabby electric scooter? However, reality shocked him. He didn't move it at all. The first collision made his vehicle shake violently, while the other car didn't budge an inch. How could this be? It must have been a lucky angle with less force. As the giant blood-red figure loomed closer, he reluctantly pressed the gas again and rammed into the side. This time, the middle-aged man was completely stunned. Still, he failed to make an impact. His vehicle's right door was deformed, and the robust structure of his vehicle twisted and crumbled. Yet, the other vehicle remained completely unmoved, not even a scratch on it. He couldn't tell if it was an illusion, but as he collided, he felt a faint silver ripple emanating from the other vehicle, dissipating his terrifying impact. What a joke, how could this be? The electric scooter seemed not like a lightweight vehicle at all, but rather a heavy, enormous block of iron moving swiftly on the ground, even more formidable and stable than his vehicle. You can crash all you want, but I remain unmoved. The middle-aged man was nearly driven to desperation, as behind him, the terrifying giant blood-red monster drew ever closer. Life and death were at stake, yet he had failed. Equally astonished were Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao, whose emotions were like a roller coaster. As they watched the vehicle approach, they thought it was the end. Due to the urgent situation, they were fleeing, and although they were in the vehicle in the city, they hadn't carefully observed the differences of this vehicle. Their judgment was similar to that of the middle-aged man with glasses, with just this one shabby electric vehicle. A luxury SUV could easily cause them to meet their end with a casual collision. If that happened, without a vehicle, they would likely end up as tragically as the survivors around them, who were fleeing on foot. However, to their shock, the luxury SUV had crashed into them twice and was nearly wrecked, while their vehicle remained unscathed, showing no signs of deformation from the inside. What on earth was happening? Where did you find this vehicle, second brother? Did you reinforce it with steel plates? No, even with steel plates, it wouldn't have this effect. The weight difference is too significant. Unless our vehicle is heavier than that SUV, but how is that possible? Isn't this an electric car? Zhang Chao sneered at the luxury SUV. Look at that guy's face. He looks like he's about to collapse. Su Xinghai, however, was not so optimistic and urged, Wang Cheng. That monster is coming up behind us. A blood-red shadow was looming ominously overhead. Wang Cheng replied coldly, doesn't he want to crash into us? I'll let him crash. If he can't move us, then let's give him a taste of his own medicine. Saying this, Wang Chung turned the steering wheel, and the moving vehicle, resembling a heavy iron block, thundered toward the side of a luxury SUV. Although Wang Cheng's vehicle was still not fully classified as a warship, its performance had already surpassed that of civilian vehicles in all aspects. An unbelievable scene occurred before the middle-aged man with glasses. Wang Cheng crashed into the SUV, and to his astonishment, the large SUV was flipped over by the small vehicle. It crashed down heavily. The middle-aged man didn't react immediately in his dizzy state. His SUV was overturned, and he was left dumbfounded, hardly believing that what was happening was real. He tried to crash into them, but couldn't even budge them. Yet, a shabby vehicle, smaller than his SUV, flipped it over. What on earth was this? His heart was filled with rage. He thought that these young people must have used some trick. However, the next moment, his expression turned to one of terror. He heard the sound of his beloved SUV's body being torn apart. The massive monster had somehow approached, frantically tearing at his SUV, with countless blood-red vines spreading like blades, cutting into his vehicle. On both sides, countless parasitic monsters roared out, a dense wave that engulfed many survivors who couldn't escape. Wang Chung, however, successfully broke through using the cover provided by the unfortunate middle-aged man, finding a clear path ahead. Speed began to pick up as Wang Chung held the steering wheel with one hand while extending his head out of the window, aiming his shotgun at the overturned, leaking luxury SUV in the distance, and fired. A loud bang echoed. The Land Rover transformed into a massive fireball, and the blood-red giant creature that had been flipping it over was blown away in an instant, with many surrounding monsters affected, their flesh and blood scattering everywhere. In that moment, several energy points were credited to the city, sourced from the mutated beings that had been killed in the explosion. The heavy gunfire was drowned out by the waves of explosions as Wang Chung took a deep breath, retracted his gun, and grasped the steering wheel in front of him. Speeding ahead, in front of them, the chaotic crowd spilling out from the university mixed with other vehicles had already dispersed. The second gate was not the only exit from the university. The chaotic escape was still unfolding at various exits of the campus. The survivors from the university, both teachers and students, had no choice but to abandon the campus where they had hidden for so long and step into the urban area. Outside the university was the vast city of Haicheng. Wang Chung and his group were also entering the city. An unknown desolation awaited them. Before them, darkness fell, enveloping the entire city in deep shadows, while behind them, the university was shrouded in endless blood-red hues. Even after escaping, it seemed they could still hear the immense rustling sounds from the blood-red vines and plants spreading within the campus. Terrifying giants had taken root there, gradually threatening to consume the entire university town. Those who couldn't escape were forever trapped in that hell. Su Xinghai gazed at the familiar university town and softly said, "In the age of apocalypse, we are all like drifting weeds." Chapter 26. Death Beetle. The blood-red shadow of the university gradually faded behind them. A distinctive black car moved through the silent apocalyptic night. Haicheng, a coastal city located in a corner of Fengtian province, was the second largest city in the province and one of the few coastal cities in the northeast region of the country, situated 350 kilometers from Fengtian. It had a large population, and its nights were once brightly lit, bustling with the prosperity of peaceful times. But now, as they traversed the streets, all they felt was desolation and despair. It had been the 8th day since the outbreak of the apocalypse. The night was deep, and after exiting through the second gate, they turned onto a 4-lane road, where almost all the vehicles were wrecked, scattered along the roadside. Some had been burned down to mere metal frames, while large pools of congealed dark red blood covered the ground. The buildings on either side were damaged to varying degrees, with some still billowing thick smoke. No one knew what had happened here. Those who had experienced it were perhaps already dead. There were no mutated beings in sight, just an eerie silence. What had occurred here? Su Xinghai stared out the window, observing the surroundings, fearful that a monster might suddenly appear. This street was only separated from the university campus by a road, yet the monsters behind them no longer pursued, as if the university was their territory, and they had no intention of stepping out. Here, however, the silence was terrifyingly stark, a stark contrast to the frantic escape they had just experienced. There were no humans, no monsters, just a deathly stillness. Who knows, it's a blessing that those monsters didn't catch up with us. Let's hurry, where should we go next? This question stumped Su Xinghai and also puzzled Wang Cheng. The rapidly changing apocalyptic situation exceeded Wang Cheng's expectations. He had planned to stay low at school and emerge only after gaining enough strength, but now, I don't know. Let's find a place to rest first. Tomorrow, we can see if we hear any gunfire and try to locate military or police personnel. It would be safer to act together, Wang Cheng said thoughtfully, keeping a close eye on the thermal infrared radar and the energy levels of the ship. The energy was running low, and the thermal radar indicated a biological presence marked by a red dot parallel to their right side. But Wang Cheng couldn't see anything. Is it a monster from the building? He wondered, remaining vigilant. His suggestion was agreed upon by Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao. Zhang Chao gripped his handgun tightly and observed their surroundings, while Wang Cheng searched for a place to rest. Strangely, as he moved forward, the red dot maintained its parallel position, as if it were following them. Is there something to our right? Wang Cheng asked. No, I don't see anything. It's too dark, came the reply. Wang Cheng frowned. Could the thermal radar be malfunctioning? That can't be. My newly upgraded ship shouldn't have any faulty parts. At that moment, another red dot suddenly appeared on the radar, then a third, fourth, and soon 10 or 20 more, almost too many to count, all popping up as Wang Cheng moved forward. This time, they weren't just to the right. They appeared in front, behind, and to the left as well. Moreover, they no longer moved in parallel, but were rapidly approaching them. Something is definitely out there. Find out what it is. Wang Cheng began to accelerate, realizing the situation was dire. The infrared thermal radar started to emit a buzzing alarm. Su Xinghai, however, was surprised. Is this a thermal radar? This vehicle, which looks like a Wuling Hongguang, is different. I just witnessed its capabilities earlier, he noted, finally paying attention to Wang Cheng's radar with astonishment. Actually, when they had just broken through the university town's encirclement, the radar had sounded an alarm, but at that time, the area was filled with people and monsters. And the noise was chaotic, so he and T noticed. But suddenly, Zhang Chao shouted, damn it, there really is something. It's not a big monster. It's a giant beetle. The nearest red dot was less than 5 meters from their vehicle, and a cacophony of rustling sounds erupted around them. With the help of the headlights, they finally saw what it was, a swarm of black beetles the size of basketballs. They had mutated beyond recognition, growing claw-like appendages, and were crazily crawling towards anything that moved, leaping up to strike the side of Wang Cheng's vehicle, trying to claw at the humans inside. The vibrations surged through. The expressions of the three in the vehicle changed drastically. Surrounding them were countless beetles, and in the blink of an eye, there were hundreds, all rushing towards them. Accelerate! One shouted angrily, immediately pressing the nitrous boost. The vehicle leaped off the ground like a cannonball, speeding forward at high speed. At the same time, he converted the remaining energy points in his body into ship energy, causing the nearly depleted energy to surge back up. Ignoring everything, he charged forward. The black beetles around them surged up densely. They could even fly short distances, crashing into the vehicle, frantically trying to claw at the glass, tearing apart the body, attempting to break in and devour the living inside. Unable to breach the vehicle, they resorted to ramming their heads against it. Through the glass, one could see their densely packed, terrifying teeth, enough to frighten anyone with a phobia of clusters. No wonder it was so quiet here. This was the domain of mutated beetles. Anyone capable of movement or mutated beings had probably been completely devoured by them. One of them turned pale, more surprised by the vehicle's incredible defensive capabilities. Where did you get this vehicle? It's amazing. It can withstand such impacts without shattering the glass. Also, isn't this supposed to be an electric vehicle? This speed is too fast. I believe it's nitrous boost. What he didn't know was that they were indeed using nitrous boost, accelerating to a terrifying speed as they raced through the desolate streets of the apocalypse, far exceeding the speed limit. If there were any traffic officers around, they would likely be chasing after them, issuing tickets. A wrecked car blocked their path, and he crashed straight into it, sending the wreck flying. He swiftly turned onto another street. However, the mutated beetles surged out like a tide, dense and seemingly endless. The vehicle's alarms blared. The impact and destructive power of these beetles individually were not strong, but their sheer numbers were overwhelming. Even a slight damage from many could be fatal, like ants taking down an elephant. But he had no choice but to accelerate again, trying to shake off the mutated beetles. The only fortunate thing was that these mutated beetles had low intelligence and were only interested in the living, relentlessly banging against the windows. The special tempered glass used in the vehicle could withstand close-range shotgun blasts, and they wouldn't be able to break through immediately. If they changed tactics and started biting the tires, that would be troublesome. Even though they were special tires, the chance of them bursting was much greater than that of the reinforced glass. As they sped forward, they unexpectedly caught up with the student council's vehicle that had escaped earlier. Their vehicles seemed to have scattered, and only one yellow school bus was currently being pursued by him. It appeared that they had been entangled with these terrifying beetles much earlier. With half of the bus covered in climbing beetles, the exterior severely torn apart, struggling to advance through the sea of beetles. Inside, many survivors were working together to eliminate the beetles, pushing the climbing ones off. The school bus was relatively tall, allowing it to fend off attacks as it struggled to move forward. Occasionally, a few unfortunate survivors were knocked off the bus by mutated beetles, only to be swarmed and devoured by the others in an instant. Wang Cheng spotted them, and they noticed Wang Cheng as well. Inside the bus, Chen Lan and Yi Qijing, the vice president of the student council, were on board. As they saw a small vehicle rushing towards them from behind, Chen Lan said, There are still survivors behind us, should we? She had not realized that Wang Chung was among those in the smaller vehicle. She only thought their car was too small to face the mutated beetles and felt a sense of pity, wanting to lend a helping hand. However, Yi Qijing firmly refused, coldly stating, "Counselor Chun, you should reconsider your good intentions. We can barely take care of ourselves." They chose the wrong means of transportation and must pay the price for their foolishness. Besides, their presence might help attract the attention of these monsters, aiding our escape. Chapter 27. The invitation of the awakened Qianlan lowered her head, knowing Yi Qijing had a point. They were in no position to help others. "Wait! Look at that vehicle!" Someone suddenly shouted. "What the heck, is that a car?" The other students, who were desperately fighting off the mutated beetles, exclaimed. Qianlan and Yi Qijing glanced over, stunned. The vehicle they had just been discussing whether to assist had accelerated past them, leaving them far behind. Speeding away with a swarm of crazed mutated beetles in pursuit, disappearing into the depths of the dark urban area. Yi Qijing's expression stiffened, finding it quite amusing in hindsight. They had debated whether to help, yet the other party didn't need their assistance at all. They had simply left them in the dust. Now only left to eat their dust. Qianlan also wore a complicated expression, looking oddly at the vehicle. If she wasn't mistaken, that acceleration flame from the nitrogen boost seemed oddly familiar. At the campus area, near supermarket number 2. No, that couldn't be right. It was impossible. That was an electric vehicle, a small sedan. Soon, Qianlan snapped back to reality, her palms growing cold as she knocked down the mutated beetles climbing onto the bus. Struggling to advance through the swarm. After navigating through 2 more streets, they finally shook off the beetles behind them. Wang Chung, however, gradually slowed down and turned to the side. He recognized this area as well. It was near Haiqing University, at the Pingsong Shopping Center, a medium-sized complex. In the night, who knew what terrifying monsters lurked in the city? Wang Chung decided against moving further into the darkness, and with the energy reserves gradually depleting, he prepared to enter the underground parking garage beneath the shopping center to rest. The garage was less crowded, and there should be no monsters around. The journey ahead was uneventful, and they safely entered the garage. The surroundings were primarily areas where mutated beetles roamed, with no other mutated creatures present. The underground parking garage was dimly lit as Wang Chung drove in. He quickly noticed several red dots on the thermal radar, and as he approached, he discovered a group of survivors hiding in the security room. They seemed to have been there for several days, looking somewhat disheveled, armed with fire axes and various weapons. As Wang Chung and his group drew closer, the survivors stood up in the security room, watching them warily through the glass window. From any angle, the security room seemed like a good choice for resting. It was not only enclosed, but also had a comfortable temperature, especially during the cold late-night hours of the underground garage. Su Xinghai jumped out of the car, intending to negotiate for entry into the security room. But they were met with refusal. The leader of the survivors, the mall manager, holding a fire axe, looked cold and vigilant. "This is ours. You can't come in." They had locked the security room's anti-theft door from the inside. Zhang Chao was somewhat indignant. "Come on, I'm not here to rob you or harm you. There's plenty of space in there. What harm would it do to let us in?" He sighed. "Forget it, we'll rest outside. It's a bit cold. But if something happens, we can get to the car quickly." Su Xinghai shook his head, for some reason. His face appeared pale and sickly as he walked towards Wang Chung. Wang Chung nodded, drove a bit further, and found a corner backed by a triangular wall to stop the car. He didn't want to provoke unnecessary conflict. His level 1 battleship was fine for escaping, but it was too small for all 3 of them to rest comfortably. Fortunately, they parked near an unclaimed off-road vehicle. Wang Chung injected a serum, gaining incredible strength. And while Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao weren't looking, he easily pulled open the locked car door. The spot they chose to rest was not far from the security room, allowing them to see the movements of the people inside. It was essential to be cautious, so Wang Chung specifically picked this location where everyone could see each other, ensuring that no one would have any ill intentions. If they did, it would be noticed immediately. The 3 had a light meal and discussed resting for a while. Wang Chung decided to rest in his battleship, while Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao would take turns resting in the off-road vehicle. Since this wasn't a dormitory, they agreed that 2 would keep watch while 1 slept. Rarely, Su Xinghai didn't volunteer for the first watch. Instead, he wanted to rest and crawled into the off-road vehicle to sleep. Zhang Chao, feeling relaxed, touched Wang Cheng's vehicle and said, "Bro, where did you get this car? It's amazing. It just survived a rough ride and being chased by mutated beetles, and it hardly has any scratches despite the paint being scraped off." Wang Chung smiled silently. Just then, more vehicle sounds echoed in the underground garage. A dilapidated bus drove in. It was the student council school bus. They had managed to escape from the terrifying tide of mutated beetles, but compared to Wang Chung and his group, they looked very disheveled. The bus was nearly unrecognizable, inside and out covered in the corpses of mutated beetles and large pools of human blood. Even the doors were twisted and deformed, unable to be opened. With a swift kick, Chunlan forcefully opened the car door. They followed the lights in this direction and parked nearby. While Wang Chung and the survivors in the security room watched this scene unfold, the manager in the security room, holding a fire axe, was visibly surprised to see that Chunlan was an awakened one, his expression shifting rapidly. However, Chunlan paid little attention to this. She was the first to get out of the car, quickly assessed the situation, and reassured everyone to rest and treat their injuries. The manager suddenly opened the security room door and walked over. He had previously ignored them, but now seemed eager to approach. Zhang Chao felt a bit displeased and stood by the off-road vehicle with Wang Chung to observe. The underground parking lot was eerily quiet, and even from a distance, they could hear what the manager was saying. He approached Chunlan, his earlier wariness towards Wang Chung and the others completely gone, replaced by a smile. Beautiful lady. Are you an awakened one? That's wonderful. We've always hoped to meet an awakened one. Can we join you? You can rest in our security room. It's warm and has hot water. This manager clearly had a shallow disposition, disregarding Wang Chung and the others as ordinary students. But upon discovering Chunlan was an awakened one, he eagerly tried to ingratiate himself, despite the state of their school bus. The awakened possess abilities far beyond ordinary people, and being associated with them would greatly enhance one's chances of survival, so everyone wanted to cling to the awakened ones. In contrast, Wang Chung and the others were in a weak position and naturally attracted little of the manager's attention. Unfortunately for him, Chunlan frowned at his advances, obviously displeased. While Yiqi stepped forward and firmly declined, Wang Chung and Zhang Chao merely watched silently, but Chunlan glanced over and recognized Wang Chung, her expression turning somewhat peculiar. The manager attempted to be charming again, but was promptly rejected by Chunlan once more, leaving him embarrassed yet unwilling to show it, and he awkwardly walked away. Not having succeeded in his attempt, he didn't want to offend the awakened one. Seeing this, Wang Chung also stopped observing and began to focus on his own tasks with Zhang Chao. After settling the students, Chunlan thought for a moment and then approached Wang Chung. Under the astonished gazes of the manager and the survivors in the security room, Chunlan and Yiqi conferred briefly before approaching Wang Chung. She extended her delicate hand and sincerely invited, I didn't expect this vehicle is also yours. We've encountered each other twice, so this must be fate. Would you like to join us? We can act together. The chances of survival will be higher. Having witnessed Wang Cheng's strength, Chunlan was aware that he had a firearm. Although she didn't know how his bike had transformed into this small electric vehicle, she had just observed that Wang Cheng's vehicle was quite impressive as well, seemingly modified. If she could bring someone like him on board, it would be a tremendous help for their student council's convoy. The manager looked incredulous. With so many people here, several strong men armed and controlling the security room and supplies, how could the awakened one not only refuse their offer to join, but instead invite those three seemingly ordinary college students? What was she thinking? Was she just a teacher, only concerned about her students? Could she really not grasp the situation even in the apocalypse? Those three foolish students looked weak and could only drag them down, putting everyone at risk. The manager muttered. Wang Chung was also somewhat surprised. He didn't expect that the awakened one, whom everyone wanted to curry favor with, would invite him instead. But before he could respond, he suddenly heard Zhang Chao from the off-road vehicle, who was preparing to switch shifts with Su Xinghai, anxiously shout, Second brother, come quickly, the boss has a fever. Boss has a fever, 38.6 degrees. Zhang Chao's words completely interrupted Wang Cheng's thoughts. He glanced at Chunlan, stopped talking, and rushed into the vehicle to check on Su Xinghai. Sure enough, Su Xinghai's forehead was burning hot, his eyes slightly open, and though he was conscious, he looked very weak, still mumbling, I'm fine, third brother, second brother, I'm fine, I'll just drink some water, just some water, you all go rest. I'll take the watch. Take the watch my foot, you need to rest. Wang Chung frowned. He had sensed something was wrong with Su Xinghai earlier, but thought it was just the tension from fleeing. Now it seemed he had already started to run a fever. Chunlan did not leave and came over to check as well, frowning and saying, No, we need to get a medicine right away. In this environment, if the fever continues, it could lead to serious problems, and there's no place to go to the hospital. I'll help you see if anyone over there has any medicine. It's fine, I have medicine. Wang Chung was short on guns, bullets, and energy, but he was not lacking in supplies. Before the apocalypse, he had bought a bunch of food and medicine, including fever reducers and anti-inflammatory drugs, which were crucial. He certainly wouldn't overlook them and quickly went to get the medicine. But he also took another look at Chunlan. What she had just said was not a joke. She genuinely wanted to help them find the precious medicine. Zhang Chao was holding down the restless Su Xinghai and said, Damn it. Is it because your previous injuries haven't healed? Boss, you've been feeling unwell for a long time. Why didn't you say anything? I'm okay, it's nothing. I want to drag you down. Just give me some medicine. I'll be fine. Su Xinghai's eyes were half open, and his speech was a bit slurred. At that moment, Wang Chung returned with ibuprofen. Not only ibuprofen, but also other assorted items like Banlan Gen and vitamins. So many that Qianlan was taken aback. Did you just raid a pharmacy? Wang Chung had an abundance of medicine. Not only did he have medicine, but also health supplements. It was normal for college students to have fever reducers, but having such a complete collection of health products was quite extraordinary. Wang Chung remained silent, feeling a bit anxious. There was no time to boast about his preparations before the apocalypse. He only focused on watching Su Xinghai take his medicine with Zhang Chao. And once he saw Su Xinghai drowsily fall asleep, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Qianlan exhaled and said, I can understand how you feel. You will be fine. Also, I hope you can reconsider my invitation. Wang Chung nodded. The boss had a fever, so he and Zhang Chao rearranged their plans, taking turns to rest and keep watch. After Qianlan left, Wang Chung glanced toward the security room, noticing the people inside were also looking their way, with expressions of both envy and surprise, before they began to regard them as if they were fools. The manager in the security room muttered, their convoy didn't merge together. Those 3 students actually rejected the invitation from that awakened one. What fools! Such a good opportunity right in front of them, and they didn't seize it. It's ridiculous. How come such good fortune isn't falling into our laps? That female awakened one has a great figure. If we could team up with her, who knows how things could develop? It would definitely be fantastic. With the outbreak of the apocalypse, his malevolence was almost written on his face, and his sordid thoughts spilled out without care. Taking advantage of the soundproofing of the security room, he spoke freely, saying whatever came to mind, while the others in the room were afraid of him, worried he might do something outrageous. However, since there were 3 survivor factions here, and he still wanted to cling to the awakened ones, he held back his impulses, keeping his thoughts to himself. The students had also settled down. They were equally shaken and fatigued, quickly tending to their injuries and then sprawled out around the school bus to rest. Their supplies were very limited, 1 bag of food shared among several students, and a bottle of water that they took turns sipping. They didn't dare to light a fire or turn on any lights. In the cold underground parking garage, they could only huddle together for warmth. Yi Qijing, however, couldn't sleep for the moment. After hearing about Wang Chung and the others from Qianlan, he said with some regret, if I had known these 3 were remarkable individuals, we should have just stopped to save them earlier. Although they didn't really need our help, it would have been a personal favor. But where did he get that gun? Qianlan didn't say anything, only gazing complexly in the direction of Wang Chung and the others, with the apocalypse upon them, as a counselor. She also didn't know exactly what to do or what the right course of action was. Finally, she sighed, we'll take it one step at a time. Their bond is strong, and it's normal for them not to want to join us. Keeping our distance from others helps us avoid trouble. But we also have to accept that it will be hard for us to get help from others. Hearing this, Yi Qijing looked at her thoughtfully. He had thought this beautiful counselor was just a kind-hearted person eager to save others, but he didn't expect her to have thought this deeply about the situation. Seemingly sensing Yi Qijing's thoughts, Qianlan let out a self-deprecating laugh. With great power comes great responsibility. As an awakened one, I have this instinct to help others whenever I see someone in need. But I know how things are, so don't worry, Xiaoyi. I'm a few years older than you. I wouldn't joke with the lives of students like you. Tomorrow morning, we'll set out to find the military. I believe that even in this terrifying apocalypse, a modern army won't collapse overnight. They will definitely protect us. Yi Qijing could only nod in response. As night fell, time passed slowly, and all artificial light sources gradually dimmed, leaving the underground garage in eerie silence. Zhang Chao replaced Wang Chung for the night watch, while Wang Chung returned to the car to rest. Su Xinghai still hadn't woken up, but his temperature had dropped a bit, indicating that the fever medicine was working. Half awake, Su Xinghai mumbled, I'm fine, you guys go rest. We'll need to be ready for tomorrow. I'm the boss. I'm a year older than you. I can handle it. Was it the fever caused by the injury in the dormitory building? Wang Chung didn't know. Looking at Su Xinghai's face, he felt an indescribable sadness and thought heavily. We must upgrade the battleship as soon as possible. The next target is 300 energy points. We must achieve this quickly to upgrade the battleship to level 2, significantly enhancing our self-defense capabilities and protecting everyone around me. By then, with the artillery and fire control systems, Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai 1T have to take risks with me. They can just sit in the spaceship and operate it. Wang Chung fell asleep with a heavy heart, but had a beautiful dream. In the dream, his battleship upgraded all the way, becoming a flashy super battleship. Its massive hull spanning the sky, as large as half a city. He piloted this spaceship to Fengtian, found his parents, and everything began to develop in the best direction. Then, Wang Chung woke up. He was gently shaken awake by Zhang Chao, who leaned close and whispered in a horrified tone, "Second brother, there's something." Wang Chung was startled. As they entered the underground garage, his level 1 battleship had completely powered down, and the radar shut off, unable to detect whatever was out there. It could remain operational, but that would consume energy points. which were currently scarce for Wang Chung. Gripping his shotgun tightly, he stood up immediately, moving quietly to follow Zhang Chao as they maneuvered between two cars. Indeed, in the dark, empty underground garage, there was a terrifying shadow, pale and crawling on all fours, moving slowly. Its head swayed back and forth, sometimes facing the security room, sometimes Wang Chung's direction, and at times towards the school bus, as if searching for prey. It seemed to be using its sense of smell and hearing to determine where the humans were, which confused it, causing it to hesitate. It clearly entered from outside the garage, but moved with an eerie lightness. By the time they noticed it, the distance to Wang Chung and the others was already less than 10 meters. Moreover, the survivors near the security room and the school bus direction clearly noticed it as well. From a distance, Wang Chung saw figures swaying silently in the shadows, evidently tense to the extreme. At the edge of the school bus, Yi Chi tightly gripped a baseball bat, standing shoulder to shoulder with Chen Lan, who was clutching a matchbox, both too afraid to make a sound, waiting to strike back when the opponent approached. Inside the security room, the manager held a fire axe tightly, staring intently outside, fervently praying, "Monster, go find trouble with those two groups. Don't come here. Don't come here. It would be best to go bite those 3 foolish university students. Idiots like them deserve it." Although there was only one monster, the underground parking garage was dark and deep, and nobody could clearly see its form. No one dared to let their guard down, fearing that a careless move might provoke it and lead to a deadly attack. However, at that moment, a dull gunshot suddenly echoed through the underground garage, resonating eerily in the cold space. The shooter was extremely accurate, landing a headshot. The pale, mutated creature that was crawling around had its head explode on impact, blood splattering the ground, its body convulsing, and it fell lifelessly to the floor. The shooter was none other than Wang Chung. He was the only one in the underground garage with a gun, at a distance of several meters, with a slowly moving target. Even in the dim light of the basement, after so many days of using a gun, it was no challenge for Wang Chung, who easily scored a headshot from close range. The pale, mutated creature had no idea Wang Chung was there. It was as good as a live target, making it easy to kill. Wang Cheng's energy point, which had been at 0, finally flickered and became 1. Looking at this single energy point, Wang Chung felt a mix of emotions. Meanwhile, others were astonished. When the gunshot rang out, a muffled sound followed from the security room, immediately succeeded by a short, suppressed scream. The manager, startled by the sudden gunfire, trembled and lost grip of the fire axe, which fell and hit his foot. When he regained his composure, he realized the mutated creature was already dead, shot in the head. For a moment, everyone in the security room thought it was military or police reinforcements arriving, leading to a surge of joy. But soon, they realized the gunfire came from the direction of the 3 university students. As the flashlight illuminated the area due to the death of the mutated creature, everyone clearly saw Wang Cheng's action of putting away the gun. They have guns. The manager's expression turned blank. It dawned on him. No wonder even the awakened ones were trying to recruit them. They had guns. At this stage, awakened individuals were generally just stronger than ordinary people, possessing some superpowers, but when it came to the speed of action, they couldn't compare to a gun. An awakened person's abilities could be easily countered by a skilled shooter. The manager first showed disbelief, quickly followed by envy and extreme jealousy. Why did those students have guns? Where did they get them? What can those inexperienced students do with guns? Why don't I have one? If I had a gun too, wouldn't that awakened one come to curry favor with me? I could even make that beautiful person completely obey me. Whatever I asked her to do, she would do. However, the brilliance in his eyes flickered and quickly disappeared as he lowered his head deeply. This was because the flashlight in the school bus also lit up. With the danger averted, Yi Qijing shone his flashlight and exchanged a glance with Wang Chung, both nodding at each other. Wang Chung knew Yi Qijing, but Yi Qijing did not know Wang Chung. Yi Qijing was the vice president of the student council, holding a much higher status than Wu Jiaodong, the president of the college student council. There was no way Wang Chung wouldn't recognize him, but to Yi Qijing, Wang Chung was just an ordinary passerby in the school. In the past, Wang Chung had envied people like Yi Qijing and Wu Jiaodong. They were university students, around the same age, and had become school officials with great social skills. It would be impossible for him not to feel envious. Wang Chung had wanted to get to know them, but never found the right opportunity. Unexpectedly, he met them in such a situation, but unfortunately, there was no longer a need for him to approach them for friendship. The two sides maintained their distance, with no intention of crossing boundaries. Wang Chung glanced at the security room and quickly turned off the light. The underground garage soon fell back into darkness. Yi Qijing found a few people to bravely drag out the corpse of the mutated creature to avoid the smell of blood, attracting more monsters. Wang Chung had contributed to killing it, but now he remained silent, watching quietly. By this time, it was already 2 or 3 in the morning. Outside, the sky was dim, and even the gunfire in the city had ceased. with only the occasional piercing scream accompanied by the howls of unknown creatures tearing through the night in Haiqing. However, Wang Cheng encountered a major problem. At 3:10, Su Xinghai's temperature began to rise again, showing obvious abnormalities. The temperature that had dropped to 38.1 degrees surged to 39.1. Zhang Chao took out a precious bottle of mineral water, which the other students were supposed to share, and soaked a towel to cool Su Xinghai down. But it was still ineffective. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. What should we do, second brother? Should we continue giving him fever medicine? I think if we give him any more, it would be an overdose. At that moment, the lights from the school bus also turned on, and Yi Qijing and Chun Lan came over upon hearing the noise. Seeing the empty bottle Zhang Chao had set aside and the wet towel on Su Xinghai's forehead, Yi Qijing's pupils constricted. These three not only had guns, but also had supplies in such abundance. Their student council had organized their escape well, gathering many people. But they had always lacked resources. Just a moment ago, everyone had shared a single bottle of water among 7 or 8 people, and that was after saving some. But here, Wang Cheng and the others. Yi Qijing thought, no wonder they are unwilling to join us. Compared to them, we are like the impoverished and the wealthy. Can the wealthy act together with the impoverished? Wang Cheng never expected that the student council vice president he once envied would now be enviously living a life of luxury without worrying about resources. Anxiously, he said, his fever has come back, and the medication doesn't seem to be working. Do you have any solutions? Chun Lan checked Su Xinghai's condition, furrowing her beautiful brows. This fever is unusual. The medication is ineffective. He needs to be put on in 4 drip. Moreover, I suspect this might not be an ordinary fever. It could be a sign of an awakening. The first half of Chun Lan's statement sent a chill down Wang Cheng's spine, but the latter part shocked him. Awakening superpowers? Is it the same as you and Xiaobai? Chun Lan nodded, her expression serious and not a joke. There are quite a few awakened individuals at our university, and several in our student council. Although I'm the only one here, from what I've learned from others, the awakening process varies depending on one's constitution. For someone like me, the ability comes naturally, but some may experience inexplicable high fevers. I've speculated that the awakening process involves ancient viruses altering the body. Therefore, those with better constitutions may have a smoother experience, while others might react more violently. We need to think of a solution quickly. Otherwise, if his fever continues like this, he might not survive long enough to awaken successfully. Listening to Chun Lan's words, Wang Cheng felt a mix of emotions, unsure whether to be happy or worried. If Su Xinghai could awaken as a superpowered individual, their team would gain another powerful ally, significantly boosting their strength. But in the current situation, while Wang Cheng had medication, where could he find a doctor for it for? Any careless operation or incorrect medication could directly endanger Su Xinghai's life. As Su Xinghai's condition worsened, Yi Qijing, having seen Wang Cheng's weapons and resources, was eager to befriend him. He changed his attitude and volunteered. I'll ask our classmates and the survivors in the security room if there are any doctors or medical students. Su Xinghai's state continued to deteriorate, his temperature rising. He had just been able to mumble a few incoherent words, but now he was almost completely unconscious. Unfortunately, Yi Qijing found no leads either. Haiqing University was a science and engineering school. While there were medical programs, they were very scarce, and there were even fewer medical students among the 20 or so survivors. Even if there were, they lacked syringes. After a brief moment, Wang Cheng calmed down. He spread out a detailed map he had bought before the apocalypse and pointed to a location less than a kilometer from their current position in Pingsong. If I remember correctly, there is a small gastroenterology hospital nearby. They must have syringes, and with a bit of luck, we might find a surviving doctor or nurse. Even if we can't find one, having a syringe might allow us to try something desperate. Everyone's expressions changed. The night was deep, and going out now was extremely dangerous. Chun Lan looked at Wang Cheng. Are you going? Wang Cheng fell silent for a second. That second of silence was filled with hesitation. In this moment of hesitation, Wang Cheng was weighing his options and thinking deeply. He recalled the 3 days of despair before his rebirth, when he was just an ordinary person without any system. His leader, Su Xinghai, had been there to comfort him, and they supported each other. He also thought about this life and how far they had come together, just before he fell unconscious. His leader was still eager to take on responsibilities. In his memory, Su Xinghai was the oldest in their dormitory, a year older than Wang Cheng, always taking on the role of a big brother. Thanks to his presence, the relationships within their dormitory had always been good. While other dorms might have conflicts, they never did, which allowed them to remain united even in the apocalypse. It was worth taking this risk for Su Xinghai. Moreover, Wang Cheng believed that when Su Xinghai awoke and became an awakened one, it would only bring greater rewards for him. In the apocalypse, what could be more valuable than having a companion by your side whom you can trust unconditionally? No one truly wants to be a lone wolf in the apocalypse. It's just that companions are often hard to trust. The apocalypse was harsh, and while surviving was important, How could one bear to watch loved ones perish one by one, going against their conscience and principles? What was the point of surviving to the end if there was nothing left? A second later, Wang Chung said firmly, "This isn't a risk, it's a necessity. Even if my leader can't be saved in the end, if I die later and meet him, I can smile and tell him that I did everything I could to save him. I can face my conscience and our years of relationship." Wang Cheng's words shook Yi Qijing and Chun Lan, leaving them with an indescribable and complex feeling. At the same time, Chun Lan and Zhang Chao spoke up together. "I'll go with you. Second brother, we have to bring our leader back. Damn it. How tragic would it be to die on the path to becoming an awakened one?" Chapter 30. Who is the doctor? Chun Lan took the initiative to speak, which surprised Wang Chung a bit. However, he hesitated. Chun Lan continued, "I'll go with you to keep an eye on things. You're going to find something, and the more people, the more strength we have. Don't worry. I'm an awakened one and won't hold you back." Only then did Wang Chung nod and turn to Zhang Chao, saying, "Third brother, we can't go together. You stay here and watch over our leader. I'll be back soon." Zhang Chao was taken aback for a moment, but quickly nodded without insisting. Yi Qijing said, "Don't worry, if you need anything, we will definitely help. We all came from the same school." Yi Qijing had been observing everything and was genuinely moved, wanting to befriend Wang Chung and the others. At this moment, Wang Chung didn't have time to think about anything else. Once he confirmed his departure, he immediately began checking his ammunition. He had a shotgun and a handgun. The shotgun had 7 rounds left, and the handgun had 18. Zhang Chao still had over 20 rounds for his handgun, but those had to be kept here just in case. Wang Cheng's ammunition was actually limited. Although he had purchased a large amount of military supplies from a toy store owner before the apocalypse, most of it consisted of high-fidelity toy bullets. The toy bullets can be directly upgraded to various calibers using energy points, compatible with various firearms, but the quantity is limited. There are only about 200 rounds in total. While a large box may seem full, it feels insufficient when in use. Recently, the energy points accumulated from hunting anomalies in the city were all obtained from firing these bullets. Not only did the city consume them, but Zhang Chao also used them. Although a single bullet may seem insignificant, the consumption adds up significantly. After counting, he realized that he only had a little over 50 toy bullets left for upgrades. One of the saddest things in life is having a gun but no bullets. Wang Chung felt a slight heaviness in his heart, realizing he needed to find a way to replenish his ammunition quickly. The resources on the warship could be converted using energy points, but the ammunition consumed for upgrading the pistol could not be converted this way. It could only be upgraded using real pistol rounds or toy bullets. After some thought, Wang Chung decided to use the energy points he had just obtained to upgrade a batch of shotgun shells, leaving some water and food for Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai, before getting into his somewhat cramped Wuling warship with Chun Lan, preparing to set off. With the silent mode activated, Wang Chung did not turn on the headlights. In the darkness, his vehicle moved like a ghost, hardly attracting the attention of any monsters unless they were face to face. As Wang Chung and the awakened Chun Lan drove out, the others in the security room were baffled by the situation, thinking it was foolish to take risks at this time to help others find a doctor and syringes. The manager felt secretly annoyed, thinking, what makes these fools think they are special just because they are awakened and have guns? If the same abilities were in my hands, I would be much stronger. As he pondered this, a hint of malice flickered in his eyes as he glanced towards Zhang Chao and the others. They were down to just 2 now. Meanwhile, Wang Chung was driving out of the underground garage. Although Chun Lan was a girl, she was quite tall, over 1.7 meters. In this small car, her long legs felt a bit cramped. She touched the car's body with curiosity and exploration. She had seen the Wuling Xingguang Mini before, but sitting here, she felt this car was obviously different. It was stable and surprisingly silent while driving. She was curious about where Wang Chung got this vehicle, and what happened to the previous exaggerated shared electric bike. However, she knew her relationship with Wang Chung was delicate, so she restrained her curiosity and didn't ask too many questions, instead focusing ahead and vigilantly watching the city under the night sky. Wang Chung and his roommates had often visited the vicinity of this complex before. Although they hadn't paid attention to the gastrointestinal hospital, he had confirmed the general location on the map, so he felt confident driving through the darkness. However, in the dark, shadows loomed on the streets, with many monsters lurking around. In front of the complex is a large traffic hub, a crossroads that is usually bustling with vehicles and people. Even in this apocalyptic era, it seems unchanged, as if there had been a desperate mass escape here. Cars are jammed at the intersection, and a series of accidents have occurred. The streets are littered with abandoned vehicles, and amidst them, shadows linger in the darkness. In the gloom, one can faintly see their terrifying, inhuman outlines, heads split in half and bodies that twitch and convulse despite being broken. Most of them are mutated beings. Wang Chung slows down the vehicle, silently gliding through them. He doesn't want to disturb these monsters. There is no telling how many similar creatures are lurking on the streets. If they were to be alarmed, It would set off a chain reaction. At that point, they might not only fail to bring back the medicine for their leader, but might also meet their end on the road. The shadows are eerie, like a parade of ghosts, and Chunlan's face turns pale as she tightly grips her matchbox, revealing her anxiety. What surprises her is Wang Qing's excellent driving skills and seemingly extraordinary observational abilities, allowing him to perfectly navigate past the monsters without being detected. She cannot help but glance at this university's student from Haiqing, who is only a few years younger than her. Previously, she had never heard of such a person in her school. How could someone like him have remained so inconspicuous until now? What she doesn't realize is that Wang Cheng's keen observation skills rely entirely on an infrared thermal radar. He has evolved his strength through serum injection, but hasn't enhanced his night vision. However, with the infrared radar, any mutated being that has a temperature difference with the environment will be marked, allowing him to seamlessly avoid detection while silently maneuvering the Wuling battleship. Suddenly, Wang Cheng slams on the brakes. Ahead, a massive shadow, towering 3 stories high, sweeps past them. In the darkness, its edges are indistinct, resembling a gigantic mound of flesh. With each step it takes, the ground trembles. Fortunately, it hasn't noticed Wang Cheng and the others, quickly disappearing at the other end of the street. Only when they are at a safe distance does Wang Cheng clearly see its form. It appears to be a mutated brown bear, presumably escaped from a zoo. Chunlan, still shaken, wonders aloud. What could have caused these things to mutate to such an extent? Wang Cheng is unsure, but the rest of the journey passes without incident, and they arrive near the gastroenterology hospital. During the night of the disaster, the hospital is not crowded, especially on the 1st and 2nd floors. They encounter only one mutated being, which Wang Cheng dispatches with a single shot to the head. Although Chunlan's awakened abilities are also remarkable, her speed in raising her hand cannot compare to Wang Cheng's swift and decisive shot at close range. However, Wang Cheng's gun lacks a silencer, and the sound echoes through the corridor. Along the way, they see disfigured corpses in the hallway, heads missing and bellies ripped open, with intestines spilling out and many showing signs of having been bitten. What else could be lurking in this building? Wang Cheng remains vigilant. Chunlan points ahead. On the 2nd floor, it seems there's a noise coming from that direction. The gastrointestinal hospital is a private facility with only 4 floors. While it is considered small for a hospital, it is relatively large among private hospitals. Wang Cheng and Chunlan exchanged a glance and quickly moved toward the end of the corridor on the 2nd floor, where they heard sounds coming from a storage room filled with clutter. Chunlan had already clenched a matchstick in her hand, ready to ignite it at any moment, while Wang Cheng held a shotgun tightly and opened the door. However, inside were not monsters, but a group of survivors. The storage room was very small, only about 3 to 4 square meters, yet it was crowded with 7 people, men and women pressed closely together, all dressed in casual clothes, looking panic-stricken as they stared at Wang Cheng and Chunlan. Upon seeing the gun in Wang Cheng's hand, a bold middle-aged man asked, "Are you police? Did you come to rescue us?" With one mutated creature on the 1st and 2nd floors, why were they so afraid, huddled together like this? Wang Cheng was puzzled, but felt a sense of relief upon finding survivors. Su Xinghai had been running a high fever and could not wait any longer. Wang Cheng directly asked, "Is there a doctor or nurse among you? I'm not a police officer, but if someone can give my person an injection to reduce the fever, I can offer supplies and ensure their safety for 2 days." As soon as Wang Cheng finished speaking, several survivors in the storage room suddenly changed color and screamed, "Watch out." Wang Cheng turned around in a flash and saw a shadow darting toward him at an incredible speed. Chapter 31. Are you also an awakened one? Dear host, a special high-energy creature has been detected. Hunting and killing it is expected to yield special serum and 5 energy points. The system's prompt echoed in Wang Cheng's mind. But at that moment, his body was tense, and he barely had time to listen closely. The special high-energy creature was already upon him. Wang Cheng had been on high alert, prepared for this moment, a result of his accumulated combat instincts from days of survival in the apocalypse. However, this creature was too fast, almost too quick to see clearly, and its sharp claws were already in front of him. In a critical moment, a flash of fire erupted as Chunlan instantly ignited the match she was holding. With her unique awakening ability, the flame transformed into a fireball that struck the mutated creature. With a brief, piercing howl, the creature fell to the ground, one of its feet burned, and it staggered backward. Only then did Wang Cheng get a clear look at what it was. It turned out to be a mutated domestic cat. Its size had not changed much, appearing almost the same as a normal cat, and even seemed small compared to humans. However, its fur had almost completely fallen out, revealing a ghastly blood-red skin. In the dim light, he could see the fine, spiderweb-like blood vessels pulsating grotesquely, and its claws had become incredibly sharp, leaving marks on the marble floor as if slicing through tofu. Its eyes were blood-red, and its fangs protruded as it let out a menacing howl. Was such a small creature also a special mutated being? Could it provide serum and 5 energy points? Wang Cheng always believed that only large mutated creatures could provide more energy points, but now it seems that is not the case. However, how these energy points are calculated remains a mystery to him. He finally understood why the 7 survivors were hiding in such a small, enclosed space. They were clearly trying to avoid this mutated creature. Be careful, its speed is too fast. We want to kill it. But several people have already been taken down by it. This small mutated cat is quick and in the complicated terrain of the hospital. Ordinary people are no match for it. These survivors must have realized this, which is why they hid in the storage room, using the cramped space to evade its attacks. Wang Cheng remained silent, watching as Chun Lan lit a second match. Suddenly, he raised his shotgun and fired. The cat, having sustained an injury to one leg, leaped and narrowly avoided the close-range barrage from Wang Cheng's shotgun. It crawled along the wall as if it were walking on flat ground, moving so fast that it was almost a blur, rapidly approaching Wang Cheng. Damn it! Wang Cheng roared in anger, raising his shotgun and firing wildly at the ceiling while retreating. Its speed was too fast. He couldn't conserve ammunition anymore and had to block its path. The advantage of the shotgun's spread fire became evident as Wang Cheng fired repeatedly, obstructing its advance. No matter how fast it was, he managed to seal off its escape routes. But Wang Cheng knew his bullets were not infinite. He had to reload, and that brief moment would be enough for the creature to rush in and tear his face apart. Therefore, just as he fired the last round, Wang Cheng shouted, "Chun Lan, help me distract it. I have a way to kill it." A fleeting hesitation crossed Chun Lan's face. The mutated cat was small and not very strong defensively, but its speed was incredible. Even with one leg burned, it was still nearly impossible to see its movements clearly. Drawing its attention and making it attack her was extremely risky. But in that moment, Chun Lan chose to trust Wang Cheng. She understood that while Wang Cheng's shotgun could temporarily block its attack routes, this was only a short-term solution. If Wang Cheng failed and the rhythm of the battle fell into the hands of that monster, they would both die. In the rapidly changing battle, life and death often hinge on a moment. Chun Lan felt cold sweat running down her cheeks as she took a daring step forward and threw the fireball at the creature. Her attack was unlikely to hit, but it created an opening. Suddenly, the mutated cat jumped down from the ceiling, leaping with incredible agility and speed, directly pouncing at Chun Lan, its claws extended, aiming for her delicate face. There was no doubt that this strike would tear her face apart. Chun Lan's expression changed drastically. Her ability was slower to activate, and facing the lightning-fast mutated cat, she had no chance to evade. She could only watch helplessly as her fate approached. In a moment of crisis, the survivors in the storage room began to scream frantically. Just at the last moment, a pair of strong hands reached out from one side, directly grabbing the body of the mutated cat and forcefully pressing it down onto the ground. The one who acted was Wang Cheng. His plan was bold and risky. The speed of this monster was incredibly fast. Even bullets couldn't catch up with it, but when it lunged at humans, it had to move from a low position to a high one, making its movements rigid and predictable. At that moment, it was the perfect opportunity for Wang Cheng to strike. He discarded the shotgun that could accidentally harm Chun Lan, used both hands to grasp the mutated cat's body, and pressed it down, exerting his strength. Though the mutated cat was small in size, as a mutated creature, its strength was impressive. However, Wang Cheng had injected a special serum for strength enhancement, and no matter how powerful the mutated cat was, it couldn't match Wang Cheng. All its struggles were in vain. In Chun Lan's astonished gaze, Wang Cheng's fingers sank deep into the creature's body, crushing it from the inside, breaking its bones one by one. This kind of strength was far beyond that of an ordinary person. Chun Lan was taken aback. "Are you also an awakened one?" Such strength could not possibly belong to someone like Wang Cheng, who appeared somewhat slender. She immediately thought of awakened individuals, perhaps those with enhanced strength. She could hardly believe her own judgment. This person not only had a gun and a modified vehicle, but also possessed awakening abilities? Was he favored by fate? Wang Cheng did not respond. He let out a deep breath, glanced at Chun Lan, and instructed her, "You should go ask the doctor." Chun Lan then realized what she needed to do, giving Wang Cheng a deep look before turning to the others in the storage room. The survivors in the storage room were equally shocked. They had been hiding in the hospital and knew nothing about awakened individuals. They were already astonished when they saw Chun Lan transform a spark from a match into a fireball. Now, witnessing Wang Cheng crush the terrifying mutated cat with his bare hands left them in a state of shock and complexity. "We've been fighting it for so many days. And Dr. Wang, Brother Chun, they all died without killing it. Thank you, thank you." Seizing the opportunity, Wang Cheng quietly activated the system to collect serum and energy points. A bone needle appeared in his hand, and he discreetly stowed it away, wiping the blood from his hands. He felt a sense of excitement. This time, the special serum was for speed enhancement. Once injected, Wang Cheng would gain boosts in both speed and strength, making his physical abilities astonishing. Even if he wasn't an awakened one, his physical fitness would far surpass that of ordinary individuals and awakened ones, greatly enhancing his survival capabilities. Of course, Wang Qing knew what was more important at that moment, and didn't he rush to inject it. Instead, he put it away and looked toward Qianlan. By this time, Qianlan had gathered some information. There were 7 people involved. The middle-aged man was a doctor, and there were 2 nurses, while the remaining 4 were patients. However, the doctor and nurses were about to end their shifts, so they were in casual clothes. Although they were all from a gastroenterology hospital, they could still manage to treat fevers. They witnessed the power of the city and, recalling the guarantees just issued by the city, eagerly introduced themselves, hoping to be chosen. The few patients also showed despair, desperately pleading to be taken along by the city and Qianlan. However, the city was concerned that some of them might not be doctors or nurses and were pretending to deceive. So, it bluntly stated, "I am not a saint. I only want those who are useful to me. You 3, go find syringes and medication. I've already told you about the symptoms of my people. If you fail to treat them, or if any problems arise during the infusion, not only will I not fulfill the benefits I promised you, but I will also hold you accountable." The 3 doctors and nurses were overjoyed, but the patients' expressions twisted in fear. They dared not say anything, wary of the city's strength. Soon, they gathered the supplies and set off back to the underground garage with the city. However, the return journey was a bit troublesome as the city's vehicle was too small to fit everyone, forcing them to move slowly while the 3 of them followed behind. They trembled with fear, reluctant to step outside, but under repeated assurances from the city and Qianlan, they finally ventured out. The city had infrared thermal radar to avoid monsters, and the journey was surprisingly uneventful. The 3 doctors and nurses desperately followed, afraid to make too much noise. But when they reached the underground garage, a minor incident occurred. Just as they left, the entrance to the garage, which had been safe moments before, was now surrounded by 7 or 8 mutated creatures, drawn in for some unknown reason. A total of 9 mutated beings were present, with 7 visible, and 2 lurking in the shadows on either side. The city was slowing down, using the infrared thermal radar to clearly discern the positions of the creatures in the darkness. Their skulls were split open, eyes rolled back, moving like blind predators in the underground garage, roaring as they advanced, clearly attracted to something. This was a bit tricky. Although there were 5 of us, only you and I can truly fight. Do you have a plan? Qianlan spoke up, remaining calm compared to typical survivors. The city glanced back at the 3 nurses and doctors, who were pale with fear. If it weren't for the surrounding shadows filled with lurking creatures, they might have panicked and fled by now. For ordinary people, facing even one mutated creature was a daunting challenge. Their twisted bodies, cracked skulls, and bared fangs could cause immense psychological shock, and most people would be paralyzed with fear even if they could fight back. Although Qianlan was calm, it was evident that she was nervous about facing so many mutated beings with just a few people. The city smiled and said, "I have a plan. You get out of the car and take those 3 with you to hide. I'll deal with them." Qianlan was surprised. "Just you alone?" The city reassured her. "Don't worry, I won't be reckless." Qianlan glanced at Wang Qing but didn't say anything more. She got out of the car decisively, leading the 3 doctors and nurses to hide behind a scrapped small truck next to the garage, nervously watching the scene. The 3 medical staff were also terrified, constantly asking what to do and whether they should run, but the next moment, they fell silent. Wang Qing's actions astonished them. He actually drove the car straight at the creatures. Originally, Wang Qing's vehicle was in silent mode, making no noise, and unless they got too close, the mutated beings wouldn't be able to detect him. But at this moment, he deliberately made noise, causing all 9 mutated beings at the garage entrance to turn around simultaneously, staring in Wang Qing's direction. One of the hidden creatures in the corner was even knocked away by Wang Qing's acceleration, crashing against the wall, blood and flesh splattering. Killed on the spot. The remaining 8 creatures howled and charged at him. One doctor was startled. Is Brother Wang trying to lure the mutated beings away? To let us in to save people? They knew that the high fever patient they needed to treat was inside the garage. Qianlan had a similar guess. She admired Wang Qing a bit and felt envious of the bond between him and Su Xinghai that gave him the courage to take such a big risk. But unfortunately, they were all wrong. Wang Qing had no intention of fleeing. 9 mutated beings? They were clearly 9 energy points. What Wang Qing needed most right now were energy points. So he couldn't possibly let these creatures go. Sitting in the Wuling warship, Wang Qing felt like he was in a turtle shell. There was no fear at all. The 8 mutated beings dispersed and charged from different positions, but they were at a distance, and one crashed into the car, but Wang Qing's vehicle remained unmoved, its kinetic absorption armor rippling. He rolled down the window, stuck out a shotgun, and shot it in the head. Following the same method, the 8 mutated beings fell one after another, all perishing under Wang Qing's gunfire. When the last 2 mutated beings charged together, it was inconvenient for Wang Qing to shoot. So he adjusted the car's position, found the right angle, and without exception, took them down as well. The three doctors and nurses were dumbfounded. One doctor said in confusion, "Are these mutated creatures so weak? A car can withstand their attacks?" Qianlan was also surprised, never expecting Wang Cheng to operate like this, single-handedly using the vehicle's powerful defenses to take down all 9 mutated beings. She immediately recalled a scene from their escape from Haicheng University. Those dense mutated beetles were also something Wang Cheng could easily pass through. Those beetles could easily tear through a school bus. Yet they left almost no marks on Wang Cheng's vehicle. Don't misunderstand. It must be that Wang Cheng's car has been modified. Hearing the doctor's analysis, Qianlan broke into a cold sweat. Realizing this, she quickly reminded them, worried that the three would think the mutated beings were easy to deal with and try to emulate Wang Cheng, only to end up in danger. Just because others can do something easily doesn't mean you can too. The 9 mutated beings all fell to the ground. Wang Cheng also jumped out of the car, looking a bit excited as he waved over. Naturally, he was thrilled, especially since he had collected energy points in the hospital, bringing his total to a full 15. Wang Cheng had already begun to plan in his mind. Next, he wanted to upgrade a rifle and install it on his warship. This way, his warship would have a weapon system. Although it might still seem a bit makeshift, perhaps next time he wouldn't have to roll down the window to fire. That would be a significant improvement. However, the only thing worrying Wang Cheng was that he didn't have enough ammunition. Without bullets, having more guns would be pointless. They would just be heavy sticks. Of course, this wasn't the time to think about those things. Once the mutated beings were cleared, he quickly led the doctors and others into the underground parking garage. Upon entering the garage, Wang Cheng discovered that during their absence, unexpected events had occurred. The manager in the security room became restless, wanting to take advantage of Wang Cheng and the awakened Qianlan being away to seize Zhang Chao, Yi Qixing, and others and use them to threaten Wang Cheng and Qianlan. Driven by greed, he coveted the gun in Wang Cheng's possession. He believed that if he could take Wang Cheng's gun, he would be able to control the awakened Qianlan, and then all the benefits would be his. The manager even managed to recruit a survivor from the security room to act alongside him. Unfortunately, while the plan was appealing, reality was harsh. The manager took the first shot at Yi Qixing and his group, thinking they were outnumbered. However, while he was entangled with Yi Qixing and the others, Zhang Chao shot him in the back, killing him instantly. During this time, Zhang Chao had also hunted many mutated beings, honing his shooting skills, and at such close range, it was easy for him to take the shot. The manager never imagined that these 3 university students had more than one gun. He thought it was already lucky for them to have found a single gun, and with Wang Cheng going out to find the doctor, he assumed he must have taken all the good stuff with him. Little did he know that Zhang Chao also had a gun. The manager's dreams shattered in an instant. His greed had dug his own grave. Yi Qixing was also quite surprised, not expecting Zhang Chao to have a gun as well. The depth of resources that Wang Cheng and his group possessed greatly exceeded his expectations. This struggle attracted more mutated beings from outside. However, before those mutated beings could enter the underground garage, Wang Cheng eliminated them, which turned out to be a close call without any real danger. By the time Wang Cheng returned, everything had settled down. After the manager's death, the other survivors in the security room no longer dared to monopolize it and willingly vacated the space. Zhang Chao brought Su Xinghai into the security room to rest, anxiously waiting. The manager had been the epitome of greed. With his death, the atmosphere in the underground garage became more harmonious and relaxed. The 3 doctors and nurses Wang Cheng brought along were indeed real medical professionals, and they quickly started administering IVs and injections to Su Xinghai. Yi Qixing and the others cleaned up the bloodstains and the smell of blood, hoping to hide here for a while, waiting to meet with the military or police for official protection. The effect of intravenous injection was indeed stronger than that of medication, and Su Xinghai's condition finally stabilized. By the next morning, his temperature had returned to normal. The 3 doctors and nurses, fearing that they might be abandoned by this influential person or offend him in some way, were very diligent and stayed by Su Xinghai's side all night, treating him as their most important patient. By noon, Su Xinghai finally stirred and woke up, still feeling a bit groggy and confused, only able to ask for water. The 3 doctors and nurses were overjoyed and quickly called everyone over with excitement. Wang Cheng and Zhang Chao were the first to arrive, but as soon as they entered, they witnessed an astonishing scene. Su Xinghai, in a daze, took a sip of water but couldn't swallow it. Instead, he began to gag and ultimately spat it out. The speed at which he expelled the water was astonishing, creating a pit in the ground. Wang Cheng felt a stir in his heart. Could this be Su Xinghai's awakened superpower? Zhang Chao was stunned and blurted out, "Boss, have you awakened into a water arrow turtle?" Chapter 33. Wang Cheng, the 100-meter sprinter? Su Xinghai, still dazed, instinctively responded to Zhang Chao with a classic quote, "What water arrow turtle? I'm your father." Gradually, he became more alert. realizing what he had done and staring blankly at the pit on the ground. The pit was quite large, about 7 or 8 centimeters deep. Its power was not unlike that of a bullet. If it hit a person, especially an altered being, it would certainly leave a mark. On one side, Chunlan approached and couldn't help but laugh. Congratulations, he has passed through the gates of hell and become an awakened one. Is his ability to spit water arrows? Wang Qing hesitantly asked. Su Xinghai, however, remained frozen in place, staring blankly at the pit. Chunlan replied, perhaps it's an ability related to water. My ability is not simply a fireball technique, but fire itself. My power is weak, and the flames I produce don't have much strength. Later, I discovered I could launch fireballs with matches. I've seen some survivors. Everyone's awakened abilities are different, but most are commonly related to water, ice, or fire. Some don't have superpowers at all, just pure strength and physical enhancement. However, even if their abilities are similar, the methods and techniques they use can vary slightly. I suspect Su Xinghai has a water-related ability. It all depends on how he uses it. Wang Cheng and Zhang Chao nodded in agreement, while the other survivors around them showed expressions of envy. Even Yi Qijing, the vice president of the student council, felt a bit envious. The trio of Wang Cheng, Su Xinghai, and Zhang Chao was the ideal doomsday team in his eyes. They had firearms, awakened abilities, and a trusting relationship with one another. This was something hard to find even in his own student council team. Yi Qijing wondered that if he were to have a high fever like Su Xinghai, there might not be anyone in his student council team who could match Wang Cheng's dedication, even though he knew that he might be experiencing a fever from awakening abilities. It wasn't his own awakening, and how many people would be willing to take risks for someone else's awakening? Su Xinghai had been in a daze for a while, and after some time, he finally reacted. I have become an awakener? Zhang Chao sat down and briefly recounted what had happened yesterday, especially the part where Wang Cheng specifically went out to help him find a doctor. Su Xinghai's expression was somewhat complex. He first looked at Chunlan and said, Chunlan, thank you. Chunlan smiled and nodded, accepting the gratitude. Then, Su Xinghai patted the shoulders of Zhang Chao and Wang Cheng. Good sons. Your father is now an awakener. In the future, be more filial, and I won't forget to share some food with you. Zhang Chao retorted, nonsense, I'm clearly your father. Wang Cheng spread his hands. Stop arguing, I'm your grandfather. The three exchanged glances, reflecting their peculiar way of interacting, which was also the foundation of their trust. If Su Xinghai were to thank Chunlan as seriously, it would feel too distant. Wang Cheng understood that under similar circumstances, Su Xinghai would make the same choice as he did. Su Xinghai's ability was indeed related to water. After awakening, he took about half an hour to recover and was back to his usual self, even more energetic than before, eagerly studying his abilities. Chunlan mentioned that the most significant improvement for an awakener was undoubtedly the astonishing superpowers, but in reality, the physical quality of an awakener also improved comprehensively, much stronger than an ordinary person. Of course, this enhancement wasn't drastic. Only the individual could feel it somewhat, and it was not on the same level as the inhuman strength gained from the power-enhancing serum that Wang Cheng had injected. Su Xinghai was still excited and dragged Zhang Chao to research his abilities together. To facilitate this, Zhang Chao directly brought a whole box of mineral water from the car for Su Xinghai to test. Su Xinghai opened a bottle, took a sip, and then spat it out. As he wasn't very familiar with his abilities yet, he failed quite a few times, wasting a bottle of water, and sometimes could only shoot out 1 or 2 decent water arrows. This scene left the surviving doctors and nurses on one side dumbfounded. They had been hiding in the hospital for so long, parched and thirsty, barely getting a few sips of water over several days, surviving on a little snack from the hospital. Suddenly, they realized the preciousness of resources in this apocalyptic environment. But who would have thought that someone here was exercising their abilities by stepping on boxes and drinking water, spitting it out bit by bit? Their evaluation of the three individuals, Wang Cheng, Su Xinghai, and Zhang Chao, rose to another level. Although they were the fewest among the three groups in this underground garage, they were definitely the elite, the big shots among big shots, with guns, awakeners, and no lack of supplies. They were incomparable to the student council members like Yi Qijing. The three doctors and nurses were also smart. Realizing this, they gathered around Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao, chatting warmly, offering shoulder rubs and back pats, using sweet talk. However, Wang Cheng also fulfilled his promise to these three doctors and nurses, providing them with ample food and water, which made the survivors in the security room envious. Although the atmosphere among the three parties has eased significantly and even become somewhat harmonious, they are still not at the stage where they can share resources. Although Wang Cheng has plenty of supplies, he does not have the generosity to share everything with others. He believes that what is related to himself and what he has promised should be fulfilled, while he cannot manage much for others. Wang Cheng has also discussed the next steps with Yi Qijing, Chunlan, and others. The underground garage is currently relatively safe. Yi Qijing and Chun Lan want to wait for rescue from the military or government here. And they also wish to check if there are any food supplies in the supermarket within the complex. Wang Cheng shares a similar thought. Although he does not want to team up with Yi Qijing and the others, he thinks the underground garage is a good location, relatively safe, with many mutated beings wandering nearby, making it suitable as a base. Wang Cheng is not particularly concerned about meeting up with the military. What he cares about is finding a place to develop quietly and quickly upgrade his battleship level. With the dormitory building compromised, he sees this underground garage as a rare good spot. Accumulating energy points is of utmost importance to Wang Cheng. After settling things in the garage, he quietly left the underground garage. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were practicing water arrow techniques in the garage and gradually becoming proficient. Wang Cheng also prepared to test his new ability, a speed-type special serum. Upgrading the battleship is crucial, but personal improvement is equally important. After all, even if his battleship one day becomes an invincible cosmic warship, he is still a flesh and blood person. If he dies, everything will be in vain. Having injected the serum last time, Wang Cheng had fewer concerns this time and directly injected it. As with the last time, it took about 20 minutes for him to clearly feel the changes in his body. He felt as if he had become lighter. This sensation was the opposite of the explosive power he experienced last time. Wang Cheng even felt as if his body might float. As daylight broke, Wang Cheng focused on a mutated being in the distance, proactively moving forward to attract its attention. The mutated beings overwhelmingly surpass normal humans in physical attributes. Especially after so many days of the apocalypse, their mutations have nearly peaked, with incredible running speed and strength. Wang Cheng had recently reduced his close combat encounters with them using his titanium tactical dagger due to the increased risks. His speed could not keep up with their attacks, making close combat highly dangerous. However, today, Wang Cheng decided to attempt close combat again, testing his speed and reaction. To his surprise, his speed had significantly improved, and the mutated being could only match him. Seizing an opportunity, Wang Cheng struck swiftly, balancing power and speed, and with his sharp titanium tactical dagger, he instantly decapitated the mutated being. Blood splattered, and an energy point was credited. Wang Cheng felt a surge of joy. With the combination of strength and speed, his combat power had truly reached a new level. He estimated that if he were to encounter that mutated house cat again, it might not be so thrilling, as he could now keep up with the speed of that mutated creature. The mutated house cat was quite small, relying solely on its speed to possess terrifying lethality. Once he could match its speed, it would be easy to take it down. Wang Cheng even timed himself and found that he could sprint 100 meters in just 7.56 seconds. He looked at the result with a strange expression. He could truly be called a sprinter now, outpacing even the fastest competitors by 2 full seconds. Wang Cheng joked to himself, if there were a Guinness record for this, I would be bringing glory to my country. Chapter 34. The new equipment of the warship. At the entrance of the Ping Song shopping center, a mutated creature was startled by a faint noise. Stumbling as it stepped out from the back door of the mall, its ears and nostrils twitching as it frantically sniffed the surroundings, trying to locate a target to hunt. However, a hand suddenly reached out from the shadows, and a titanium alloy dagger flashed, severing its head in an instant. Blood spilled, and it fell to the ground with a thud. Behind it, within the first floor of the shopping center, countless mutated creatures stiffly twisted their bodies, turning their gazes toward this direction. But soon, as the sound ceased, they could no longer clearly discern the location and were left to wander in their own area. Wang Cheng took a deep breath and quietly retreated. The underground parking lot of the Ping Song shopping center was relatively safe, with not many mutated creatures. But there were plenty above. At around 6 o'clock, the mall was crowded, but the parking lot was empty, indicating that everyone had gone inside. The first, second, and even the underground supermarket, the parking lot being the second basement, were filled with mutated creatures. With such a massive number, there were at least 1,000 mutated beings within this complex, many of which were secondarily mutated, appearing bizarre and unrecognizable. Originally, Yi Qijing and Chun Lan had planned to take over the underground supermarket to acquire ample supplies, as it had not been raided by others yet. The resources inside were plentiful, and if they were successful in their raid, the supplies from the entire shopping center would be enough for their student council members to live on for several months. Unfortunately, the sheer number of mutated creatures made this impossible. Even Wang Cheng was cautious, not daring to fire a shot that might alert them, let alone Yi Qijing and the others. A single action could trigger a chain reaction. Although Wang Cheng's war vehicle was tough, if he were to confront such a large number of mutated creatures, even that sturdy vehicle would likely be torn apart. Still, Wang Cheng did not give up. Hunting mutated creatures was imperative for him. The events at Haicheng University had instilled an unprecedented sense of crisis in him. In this apocalyptic world, everything was changing rapidly. If you did not quicken your pace, this terrifying world would push you forward, and without preparation, you would end up with no way out. 300 energy points are required to upgrade the battleship from level 1 to level 2, and Wang Cheng is heading towards this goal. To achieve this, he has been wandering around the area for an entire day since escaping from Su Xinghai. He hunts for mutated creatures everywhere. During the day, he can clearly see how terrifying this once familiar street has become, filled with abandoned vehicles scattered all over, and large patches of blood and flesh fragments on the asphalt road. The mutated creatures almost crowd the entire street. It is evident that when the apocalypse broke out, this place was in utter chaos, even a hellish nightmare. Last night, the infrared thermal radar only marked the mutated creatures near Wang Cheng's location. At this moment, looking around, the entire street and the market are filled with these monsters, lurking like ghosts. If any sustained commotion were to occur at this intersection, it would be akin to poking a hornet's nest, causing the entire street of mutated creatures to swarm. Wang Cheng was startled. He did not expect there to be so many monsters nearby. Fortunately, they weren't too aggressive last night. These mutated beings are far more terrifying than the zombies in a certain video game. A single one can tear apart a vehicle with its bare hands, stop a speeding car, and its severed head can bite off a person's head in one go. Their strength and destructive power surpass that of the zombies in the game. The hunting environment here is clearly far inferior to his dormitory building, so Wang Cheng has become cautious. Luckily, he has received enhancements in strength and speed, making him a somewhat stronger genetic human. Even without a gun, he can handle ordinary mutated creatures. However, being alone makes it difficult for Wang Cheng. He needs to observe the positions of the mutated creatures, carefully lure them, avoid them, and then complete the kill. If he hadn't accumulated valuable experience in combating mutated creatures in his dormitory, he would probably be in grave danger now. Wang Cheng is waiting for Su Xinghai to master his abilities. At that time, they can work together, greatly improving their efficiency in taking down mutated creatures. Of course, the key factor is that while Su Xinghai's water arrows may not match the power of a handgun, they are silent and stealthy. Compared to Wang Cheng, the people from the student council and other survivors in the underground parking lot are not as bold. They also come out during the day, but unlike Wang Cheng, they are searching for food. The people in the security room have been hiding here for more than a day, and the food in the vehicles in the underground parking lot has been mostly scavenged and consumed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to stay in the security room for so long. Now, with no food found in the relatively safe underground parking lot, advancing to raid the supermarket within the shopping mall is impossible. They can only venture out to scavenge from abandoned vehicles on the street and search through packages left behind by other survivors for food. Most of them are just ordinary people, not a match for the mutated creatures, and can only proceed cautiously in search of food. In their eyes, Wang Cheng is undoubtedly a strange person, so powerful, yet instead of looking for food, he roams around hunting mutated creatures. A group of college students searching for food from a distance saw Wang Cheng hunting mutated creatures and whispered among themselves. This guy, ignoring food, is running around killing mutated creatures. Can he really eliminate them all? Isn't that a waste of effort? What do you know? This might be the world of the big shots. Maybe he wants to eradicate all the mutated creatures to restore order to the world. They thought Wang Cheng was wasting his time, but by the end of the day, despite being exhausted, he felt quite excited. This was because he had finally replenished the energy points he had consumed while upgrading his battleship, reaching a total of 30 energy points. Hunting mutated creatures here was a bit more troublesome, but with their large numbers and good visibility, Wang Cheng, once he got the hang of it, managed to take down quite a few. With these energy points, he boarded his level 1 battleship parked outside, took a deep breath, and pulled out the toy rifle he had prepared earlier. Upgrading the battleship required 300 energy points, and with only 30 on hand, he was far from enough. Wang Cheng's goal for today was to upgrade this rifle and mount it onto his battleship. This way, he could compensate for the current lack of firepower on the battleship and wouldn't have to stick his head out of the window to shoot. As the sun set and night approached, the shadows of the swaying mutated creatures stretched long on the ground, resembling terrifying ghostly figures. Wang Cheng successfully spent 20 energy points to upgrade the rifle. The toy rifle transformed into a heavy, real, semi-automatic rifle. Holding it in his hands brought a different sense of solemnity and seriousness. This was a weapon for killing. Automatic rifles are also the most common firearms in warfare. Handguns are for show, but when it comes to action, it has to be rifles. Wang Cheng weighed the rifle in his hands, then opened the weapon module located at the bottom of the chassis and placed the rifle inside. Immediately, a line of small text appeared on the central screen of the Wuling battleship. Weapon module activated. Scanning weapon, scan successful. Current type, 762mm caliber rifle. Maximum magazine capacity, 30 rounds. Binding in progress. Binding successful, rifle locked. Wang Cheng's gaze flickered as he saw the left weapon module unit on the side of the cockpit of his Wuling battleship light up, indicating that the weapon was being loaded. By clicking a button, a hand-crank fire-control joystick extended from below the left side of the steering wheel. While using the steering wheel, Wang Chung could easily manipulate this little device with a finger, allowing the successfully loaded rifle to adjust its angle within a 60-degree range. By moving the joystick, he could rotate the muzzle and press the button to fire. Moreover, there was even a small display showing the current ammunition count, 0. Once the rifle was loaded and bound as the battleship's weapon module, it was completely locked in place, unable to be replaced or removed. Which was why Wang Chung hadn't bound his handgun or shotgun earlier. The rifle was undoubtedly the most suitable weapon for the battleship. Wang Chung just needed to load ammunition through the specially open loading port, with a maximum capacity of 100 rounds. It can barely be considered a naval machine gun. Its firepower is incomparable to that of a real warship, and even pales in comparison to an ordinary infantry fighting vehicle. Yet Wang Chung is still very excited. He knows that this is just the beginning. His warship will continue to evolve and ultimately become a high-tech battleship that no modern equipment can rival. Wang Chung spent 5 energy points to exchange for 50 rounds of 7.62mm rifle ammunition, all of which are now loaded. The ammunition count shows that Wang Chung has 50 rounds. At this moment, his vehicle is not only resilient but also conceals weapons on the left side, ready to extend out and unleash a barrage at any moment. Chapter 35. The target of the second-level warship. The sound of gunfire is getting closer. As night falls, Wang Chung drives the warship back to the underground garage. Upon seeing Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao, he shares his observations. Recently, the gunfire in the city has become less dense and more dispersed, echoing from all directions, as if the military and police have spread out across the urban area. Among them, one group is clearly approaching their location today. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao exchange glances, both understanding what this means. The military is coming? Old Wang, what are your plans? Wang Chung does not hide his intentions and replies directly. I hope to cooperate with the military, but it has to be based on the specific situation. In this world, who knows what is going on? In Wang Cheng's view, the best way to maximize the use of his system and accumulate energy points in the shortest time is to collaborate with the military. No matter how the apocalypse changes, the military and government will always be the ones wielding the greatest force. Therefore, cooperating with them could allow them to help him gather mutated organisms and other high-energy beings for him to eliminate, providing energy points for the system. Such hunting efficiency would undoubtedly far exceed what Wang Chung could achieve on his own. But this is only an ideal scenario. How to actually cooperate with the military? Will they cooperate with him? How to explain the system? These are all realistic and cold-hearted questions. Wang Chung suspects that the possibility of being controlled by them is quite high, or that the military might not even pay attention to him. All of this requires careful deliberation and cautious probing. This news quickly spread underground, and everyone was very excited. The approaching gunfire at this time signifies that safety is nearing. Naturally, everyone is thrilled. After being chased and hiding from monsters for so long, everyone longs for the protection of regular troops. Unfortunately, that night, the gunfire maintained a distance that was neither too close nor too far, never truly approaching the vicinity of the large market. Wang Chung is not anxious. If he encounters the military, he will, but if not, he won't risk seeking them out. However, other survivors are eagerly hoping for military protection. Yet they lack the means to find the military and even dare not call for help loudly in the area, so they can only stay put. Meanwhile, Yi Chi comes up with a plan, having someone outside create a signal by generating thick smoke, attempting to send out a distress signal. Unfortunately, the urban area of Haicheng is now filled with smoke and ruins. Their little smoke is inconspicuous and almost attracted the attack of mutated beings, all of which went to their doom. Since then, Yi Qijing has become more cautious, squatting in an underground garage and no longer acting recklessly. Although they have Chunlan on their side, most of them are just ordinary students. They can manage to deal with mutated beetles while huddled in their cars. But if they were to engage directly with mutated beings, they would struggle to form any real combat power. In stark contrast to them are the 3 from Wangqing. After Su Xinghai recovered and became familiar with his abilities, the trio began to act in unison again. Zhang Chao was responsible for attracting the mutated beings. Su Xinghai shot water arrows at their legs, and Wang Chung delivered the final blow. Initially, they were a bit clumsy, but gradually they improved. With Zhang Chao acting as a living bait, the attraction to the mutated beings was extremely strong. Previously, Wang Chung had to create noise to draw the mutated beings, which took a lot of time and effort. Now, with Zhang Chao as bait, the mutated beings quickly went into a frenzy. At this moment, Su Xinghai would strike, shooting a water arrow with precision. Although his water arrows were not as powerful as a handgun, they could still create a bloody hole in the thigh of a mutated being. The splash effect was significant. When hitting flesh, it would instantly tear a gory wound. The movement of the mutated being would be severely restricted, allowing Wang Chung to rush in for the final strike. using a titanium alloy dagger to decapitate it. Wang Chung referred to this as a no-bullet wasted tactic. As their ammunition dwindled, Wang Chung became increasingly frugal. Then they would shift to the next target. With the addition of the two, Wang Cheng's speed in hunting mutated beings greatly increased. In just one day, they managed to take down nearly 30 mutated beings. It's worth noting that on his first day out, Wang Chung had wasted a whole day and only killed a little over 10. So the 30 energy points were a result of the accumulation from the previous night. After 3 consecutive days of hunting, Wang Cheng's energy points surged back to 100. Although this area was fraught with danger, both Su Xinghai and Wang Chung had improved their strength, and with Zhang Chao becoming more skilled at combating mutated beings, the trio's cooperation was becoming increasingly adept and synchronized. However, although Su Xinghai had become an awakened one, his power had its limits. He could fire a maximum of 15 water arrows in a day. Beyond that, their potency would sharply decline, becoming no different from a toy water gun. If he exceeded 20, it would be meaningless, essentially just spitting water. Su Xinghai joked about this, saying, "I feel like I've truly become a water arrow turtle. Spraying water every day, and my throat is about to give out." However, he had discussed this deeply with Wang Chung, and Su Xinghai expressed that he felt his ability's upper limit was not fixed. He sensed the existence of a higher threshold. Wang Chung later verified this with Chen Lan. Chen Lan's abilities are not limitless. Her fire powers are explosive and can be used a maximum of 10 times a day. Moreover, she is aware of the existence of similar barriers, and if she can find a way to break through these barriers, she believes her strength can reach a new level. Wang Chung has been contemplating this. The reason for awakeners ultimately stems from mutations. Negative mutations turn people into monstrous variants, while positive mutations allow individuals to awaken and gain superpowers. Variants can undergo secondary mutations, and perhaps awakeners can as well. The higher realm behind this barrier might be secondary mutation or secondary awakening. However, Wang Chung and Su Xinghai have researched this together and have not found a way to achieve secondary awakening, so they can only put it aside for now. Wang Chung wonders if he could later try injecting serum into Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao to see if Su Xinghai could gain further enhancements on top of being an awakener. Wang Chung and the other two hunt during the day and return to the underground garage at night, while the other survivors view them as if they are crazy. What use is killing variants? Everyone else is working hard for food, saving supplies out of fear of starvation, yet they are out hunting, exhausting their energy, and frantically consuming resources. Isn't this self-inflicted hardship? Only Wang Chung feels invigorated. At this rate, 300 energy points are just around the corner. The team's efficiency should not be underestimated. If given enough time, Wang Chung is confident he could take down the Ping Song marketplace. He remembers that there are still a few toy stores in the marketplace and wonders if there are any toy guns available. Regarding the hunting of variants, Wang Chung has explained to Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao that he can extract energy from them, which is why continuous hunting is necessary to enhance himself. Wang Chung didn't know how to elaborate, so he only vaguely outlined the situation without mentioning the system. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao have long realized that Wang Chung has secrets but do not press him for details, simply cooperating fully with him. Zhang Chao just laughs. Now the entire team's resources are at your disposal, so you better deliver. While hunting variants, Wang Chung did not give up on searching for supplies, trying to expand their activity range during the day, looking for toy stores around the Ping Song marketplace. He also moved along the streets, exploring towards the direction of the gunfire. Hai City is vast, and the previous gunfire had lingered nearby, but had never truly come closer. Wang Chung wanted to follow the sound to see if he could find any military equipment that might have been left behind. Additionally, he was considering upgrading a rifle to replace Zhang Chao's bird gun and enhance their firepower. However, to Wang Cheng's surprise, during their daytime exploration, they made a significant discovery. In the shadow of a small alley heading east at an intersection, they found a toppled police motorcycle. The motorcycle's owner had turned into a variant and was wandering nearby, but his baton and service weapon were still intact. Wasn't this like picking up supplies for free? Wang Chung felt fortunate. Now, the three of them each had a handgun. As the day of hunting and exploration came to an end, the night deepened. Wang Chung returned to his Wuling battleship, but did not rush to rest. Instead, he took out his shotgun, preparing for a second upgrade. Chapter 36. Gunfire. The night was quiet and still, the underground garage enveloped in silence. Wang Chung sat alone in his Wuling battleship, with his handgun and shotgun laid out in front of him. These two weapons were the first he upgraded and had accompanied him until now. They had long since reached level 1. For Wang Cheng's advanced tech system, upgrading a toy gun to a real gun was not the limit. It could be upgraded further. To upgrade the level 1 handgun to level 2, it required 20 energy points, while the shotgun required double that, 40 energy points. After the recent battles, Wang Chung had accumulated a total of 126 energy points. After some contemplation, he decided to upgrade the shotgun. Initially, Wang Chung had considered upgrading the handgun due to its lower consumption, but he later dismissed that idea. The handgun lacked sufficient power, while the upgrade cost was lower. The resulting effectiveness might not be significantly better. Rather than waste 20 energy points on a mediocre upgrade, it was better to upgrade the shotgun directly, achieving a more substantial improvement in one go. All fears stemmed from insufficient firepower, so he would directly upgrade to the most powerful weapon he had. Although he had 126 energy points, he planned to upgrade only one weapon, as he also needed to prepare for upgrading his level 2 battleship. The upgrades for these firearms were intended to enhance his survival capabilities, but upgrading the battleship was of utmost importance. In the silent surroundings, Zhang Chao kept watch, lost in thought behind the car, while Su Xinghai was sound asleep in another vehicle. With no one around, Wang Chung began the manual upgrade process. Having used the system multiple times, he was already quite familiar with the entire process. A glow enveloped him as 40 energy points were instantly deducted. This upgrade took a bit longer than usual, lasting a full minute and a half before the shotgun completed its enhancement. The changes to the shotgun after the upgrade were worth the 40 energy points. The level 2 shotgun had transformed into a grenade launcher. In addition to its original shotgun function, a small grenade launcher had been added beneath the barrel, capable of single-round loading, with a caliber leaning towards 30 millimeters. Wang Chung felt a surge of excitement. Was this not a true transformation? Although it hadn't turned into some outrageous laser weapon as he had hoped, the addition of a grenade barrel to the shotgun exceeded his expectations. Next time, he could fire a shot that would pack a serious punch. Wang Chung was thrilled. He picked up a toy bullet and attempted to upgrade it to a 30mm grenade. To his surprise, it worked. There were even multiple types of grenades to choose from. Each energy point could upgrade one grenade, with options for high explosive grenades, tear gas grenades, smoke grenades, and more. Various multifunctional paths were available for upgrades. Wang Chung noticed that although this single-barreled grenade launcher was fired through the shotgun system, it could also be partially disassembled. When taken apart, it looked quite similar to the previous shotgun. Holding his gun, Wang Chung inexplicably thought of the terrifying mutated giant tree at Haicheng University. He wondered how Haicheng University was doing and if that giant tree would continue to grow, eventually overshadowing the entire city. Although he hadn't seen the eerie crimson spread during these past few days, the rapid growth and reproduction of that giant tree made it seem like only a matter of time. This thought cast a shadow over Wang Cheng's heart. Knowledge leads to longevity. Ignorance leads to brevity. It was a tranquil night. Early the next morning, Wang Chung and his team set out again. Wang Chung made a bold move to bombard the first floor of the Ping Song shopping center. This was something he had long wanted to do. Inside the shopping center, there were numerous mutated entities, even more than the combined number outside on the street. But over the past few days, Wang Chung and his team had only been hunting the mutants on the periphery and in the streets. This was because there were simply too many monsters inside the shopping center. If they were to stir them up, they would be overwhelmed without heavy weaponry. However, with the shotgun upgraded to have a grenade launcher function, Wang Cheng's confidence soared. He brought along 5 high-explosive grenades and had Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai provide cover as he approached the large doors of the shopping center to lure out the mutated entities. A horde of mutants howled and rushed forward, crowding at the entrance. Wang Chung directly attached the grenade launcher and fired with determination. With a loud bang, flames erupted, shaking the ground as nearly half of the glass on the first floor shattered. Thick smoke billowed up, and 7 or 8 mutants at the front were blown apart. Their remains scattered. Wang Cheng's energy points surged by 7 or 8, and the remaining mutants were also instantly decimated, collapsing to the ground, yet still crawling forward with madness. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were left dumbfounded. In the underground garage, students from the student council and security personnel were shocked and confused, unsure of what was happening. The spectacle startled Wang Chung as well. In movies, when he saw others using grenade launchers, the power seemed average, but using it in reality was an entirely different concept. However, Wang Chung had no time to be surprised. The mutated entities on the ground were severely injured, their mobility and threat greatly diminished, making it the best time to reap the rewards. Wang Chung jumped out and began to harvest, moving like a specter, but soon, he found it hard to continue as he saw something in the thick smoke and shouted, "Run! Get out!" He turned and ran, darting through the billowing smoke created by the grenade launcher. Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai glanced behind him, instantly filled with dread. Zhang Chao shouted, "You've stirred up a hornet's nest." At that moment, hordes of mutated entities inside the shopping center were triggered, forming a surging black tide heading towards their location. Especially with the outer glass of the shopping center shattered, many mutants crawled out from all directions, including some that had undergone secondary mutations. They either had massive bodies and moved like mountains or were extremely agile, crawling at high speeds, posing terrifying threats. One of the mutated creatures, resembling a giant frog, was blood red all over with its flesh rolling back. It leaped fiercely from the ground, using its terrifying jumping ability to soar over the heads of dozens of other mutated entities and pounce towards Wang Cheng and the others. Su Xinghai's expression changed drastically as he grabbed a water bottle, took a big gulp, turned his head, and shot a water arrow from his mouth. However, this second-level mutant not only had incredible jumping abilities, but also seemingly extraordinary defense. This attack, which would create a hole in a typical mutant, merely broke the skin of this one without inflicting any serious wounds. Just as it was about to strike down, Wang Cheng let out an angry roar. Damn it! Am I afraid of a bunch of you? Saying this, he lifted a grenade launcher and manually loaded a second high-explosive grenade. The 30mm grenade launcher erupted with deadly fury in the next moment, and the heavy high-explosive grenade shot out, instantly hitting the target and splattering blood, effectively blowing the creature apart mid-air. This provided Wang Cheng with 3 units of energy points. Fall back. Wang Cheng's firepower was astonishing as the surrounding mutants continued to converge. He kept firing, and the grenade launcher compensated for the lack of area damage, allowing him to blow away large groups of densely packed mutants with just one shot. Wang Cheng's energy points surged, and with 5 prepared 30mm high-explosive grenades expended, his energy points reached 135, covering the cost of upgrading the grenade launcher. The 3 of them could accumulate that much energy in a day of hunting, but they achieved it in just a few minutes. Wang Cheng sighed internally, realizing that science and technology truly are the primary productive forces. Upgrading the shotgun was the right choice, as the killing efficiency had instantly improved by several levels. However, Wang Cheng was now running for his life. Despite the powerful fire of the grenade launcher, it made too much noise, attracting all the mutants from all directions. Gathering like a tide, looking around, it was a sea of black, making one's scalp tingle. Unless Wang Cheng had a heavy machine gun, facing such a scene meant he could only escape quickly. He climbed into a vehicle with Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai, speeding away and gradually shaking off the relentless mutants. Zhang Chao, still shaken, said, "Second brother, where did you get the grenade launcher? It's impressive, but it makes too much noise." Wang Cheng felt the same, deeply sensing a fear of insufficient firepower. "I need to upgrade. I need even more firepower. That way, even if there are more mutants, I can sweep them all away." Still, the outcome wasn't too bad. If this had happened earlier, with so many mutants alerted, they might not have even had the chance to escape to the vehicle and would have been surrounded and killed. But now, not only did he manage to escape, but he also obtained a significant number of energy points through his powerful firepower. Even though they were chased for 2 blocks and couldn't see the store anymore, overall, it was still quite good. They had taken a solid step forward in confronting the mutants. At that moment, however, Su Xinghai showed a serious expression. "Do you hear that? Gunfire." Chapter 37. The Price of the Capital. Ahead, gunfire could indeed be heard. It was only a street away at first, with just a few sporadic shots. But it quickly escalated into a large-scale exchange of fire, dense like popping beans. Just a moment ago, Wang Cheng and his group had made their way several streets away to avoid alarming the mutated creatures. Now, they were hiding under a canopy extending from a street-side food stall, 2 to 3 kilometers away from the Ping Song marketplace. This area was one they had not explored before, and they did not expect to find armed individuals nearby. Were they military personnel? Su Xinghai looked at Wang Cheng and asked, "Should we go take a look?" Zhang Chao was a bit excited. "Are they military? Has the military pushed in?" In recent days, the gunfire in the urban area had significantly decreased. While hiding in the underground parking lot of the Ping Song marketplace, they had their own analyses, considering 2 possibilities. First, that the military had indeed been overwhelmed and was fully retreating from the city. Second, that the military was gaining the upper hand, having cleared many of the monsters in the urban area and was gradually advancing, essentially taking control of the situation. Wang Cheng raised his head and listened closely to the gunfire. It sounded very near, seemingly just behind a multi-story building ahead. From this position, he could even faintly hear some human shouts drowned out by the gunfire. It had already been over 10 days since the outbreak began. Having guns did not necessarily mean they were military. Wang Cheng and the others could find guns, and it was possible for others to acquire them by various means. "Let's go take a look." Wang Cheng thought for a moment and decided to get out of the vehicle. He did not plan to expose himself directly, but wanted to observe first. While others might be excited to encounter military personnel and eager for their assistance, Wang Cheng was different. He had weapons, warships, and energy points, so he was not overly dependent on the military. On the contrary, he was more concerned about falling into someone else's trap. Nevertheless, he was still prepared to check it out. His ammunition was running low, whether or not they were military. If the other side had guns, they would definitely have ammunition. Acquiring a batch of ammunition would be beneficial. Without ammunition, even if Wang Cheng had a gun, it would be like a river without a source, and even the warship would fall silent. Regarding mutated creatures, his vehicle was not very conspicuous, but for other humans, Even if his Wuling warship could operate silently, it could still be seen. Therefore, the trio got out of the car and quickly approached the direction of the gunfire. There were not many mutated creatures on this street. A few were wandering like ghosts. Wang Cheng switched to a shotgun and, in coordination with Su Xinghai, silently took them out. More energy points were credited to their account, and amidst the dense gunfire ahead, the sound they made was also drowned out. As they got closer, Wang Cheng and his team found a hiding spot, peeked out to observe, and indeed saw a squad of military soldiers covering a group of survivors as they retreated. Among this group, there were not many fighters, only 4 in total, all covered in blood. One of them was injured, stumbling backward while holding an ammunition box, supported by other survivors. However, there were more than 20 survivors they were protecting, all with panic-stricken faces, continuously retreating, and some were shouting, "Kill it! Don't let it come near! Don't let it come near!" Their vehicles seemed to be damaged, overturned on its side, emitting thick smoke. At this moment, they were retreating step by step, facing at least 17 or 18 mutated creatures advancing towards them. Most critically, there was also a second-stage mutated creature, bulky like a giant meatball, standing at least 5 meters tall, which had just taken a burst of rifle fire without flinching, mixing in with the ordinary mutated creatures and marching forward aggressively. In the corridor of a nearby residential building, more mutated creatures were continuously emerging, launching surprise attacks on this team. The 3 fighters were firing while retreating, facing the mutated creatures and trying to protect the panicked survivors behind them from scattering, constantly falling back. As Wang Cheng and his team arrived, they saw a fighter on the left edge being tackled to the ground by a mutated creature jumping down from the 2nd floor of the adjacent building. With sharp claws sweeping through, blood and flesh flew, and amidst the screams, that fighter was severely injured. However, being an experienced soldier, he pulled out a tactical knife to block, barely preventing the mutated creature from biting off his head. Yet, he couldn't hold out for long. The power of the mutated creature far exceeded that of a human. Even a well-trained soldier would ultimately succumb to such overwhelming force. His death was only a matter of time. His comrades changed color, ready to rush in for rescue. But with the fall of the soldier on the left, a gap appeared in their line, and a mutated creature roared as it charged into the crowd of survivors behind them. Panic instantly spread among the survivors. In that moment, the soldier found himself in a dilemma. Should he save his comrade or help the survivors? If he saved his comrade, the survivors would surely suffer casualties. If he helped the survivors, his comrade would undoubtedly die under the mutated creature. It was a difficult moral dilemma. And the critical point was that this soldier had to make a choice quickly, otherwise, no one would be saved. Another soldier on the far right was also under immense pressure and had no time to help. Just then, heavy gunfire erupted from behind them. Wang Qing took a glance and decided to act, not for any other reason. But he had his eyes on the ammunition box tightly clutched by the injured soldier being pulled back by the survivors. It was a box of rifle rounds. If he could get it, he wouldn't be short on ammunition for a while. Moreover, if he didn't act now, all these soldiers would be dead. Wang Cheng was the first to fire. To avoid friendly fire, he used a handgun instead of a shotgun, boldly opening fire and directly stating, "I'll deal with this one. You go save people." He and his companions charged into the crowd of survivors to confront the mutated creature that had broken in among them. The injured soldier was taken aback. Hearing the gunfire, he initially thought it was his reinforcements arriving, but to his surprise, a group of young people dressed in casual clothes, resembling university students, burst in. However, this group seemed highly experienced, their marksmanship precise, as they charged into the crowd, swiftly eliminating the mutated creatures with efficiency, even sharper than some of the less experienced soldiers. With no time to think too much, he quickly took action to rescue his comrades. The mutated creature that had charged into the survivors was soon killed, and on the other side, the soldier who had been knocked down was also rescued by his teammates. While fighting and retreating, the soldier expressed his gratitude, saying, "I am Li Xinxing from the 9th Company, 2nd Battalion, 3rd Regiment of the 176th Armored Division. Thank you for your assistance. Where did you get your weapons? We need to retreat to a safe area quickly." The immediate threat had been neutralized, but ahead of them, mutated creatures were still advancing, especially the 2nd-stage mutant, which loomed closer like a mountain of flesh. The 3 soldiers were only equipped with light weapons and had no way to deal with such tough opponents. The situation was urgent, and the survivors looked panicked. Wang Cheng glanced at them and pointed to the ammunition box, saying, "We can help you, but I need some of your bullets." Upon hearing this, Li Xinxing was momentarily taken aback, while the other survivors immediately changed their expressions. What was this? Did they still want military supplies? Such greed. They wondered if the weapons in their hands were also taken from the military. This was taking advantage of a crisis. A survivor with a horse-like face cast a wary glance at Wang Cheng's gun and shouted, "What kind of nonsense is this? You come to save people. And I thought you were good guys, but it turns out you're just like the rest of the doomsday scum. Don't think I want to speak up just because you have guns, We have soldiers here too. Another survivor cried out. Just agree to them. Help us. The monsters are coming. In fact, this matter had nothing to do with the discontented survivors like the man with the horse face. They were merely envious and dissatisfied, seeing Wang Cheng and his group as ordinary people with guns who could negotiate with military personnel. Su Xinghai remained silent for a moment before sneering. Everyone just wants to survive. Is it our fault that we won't help you for free? Without our intervention, countless more of you would have already perished. The final result would likely be being overwhelmed by these monsters, with none surviving. We are survivors too and have no obligation to help you. Why should we risk ourselves to assist you without compensation? Are we saints? It's too presumptuous to think that we should waste our resources and energy while disregarding our own survival. Su Xinghai countered sharply, shaking his gun, leaving the group of survivors speechless. Wang Cheng took a deep breath and said, with so many of you wanting to survive when the monsters come, not one of you dares to fight back. Isn't it also relying on others' lives to save your own? Who are the doomsday scum you speak of? Soldierly. I admire you all. I cannot reach your level, but in these desperate times, we too must survive and be responsible for ourselves. We cannot help others at the cost of our own safety. We can help you, and we want to help you, but this is my price. I only want half of your ammunition, which I think is reasonable, not taking advantage of your situation. At this moment, Wang Cheng's gaze was intense as he looked at Li Xinqing. He admired these selfless warriors and gave them enough respect, making his intentions clear from the start. Wang Cheng didn't possess such high ideals. He wasn't at the point of sacrificing himself for strangers. His risky actions indeed aimed to help them, but he also had his own objectives and interests to gain, not here to be a champion of justice. Wang Cheng was an ordinary person, just a regular citizen without any lofty ideals, wanting to live well himself and for those around him. For this reason, survival and interests came first. He would help if he could, and if not, he wouldn't make things worse for others. Since he was going to act, it couldn't be for nothing. He genuinely wanted that box of ammunition, which was a scarce resource. He had never shied away from admitting this, and it was precisely because of this that he managed to survive from the beginning of the apocalypse until today. One must have principles in their actions, but also avoid being foolish and losing out. Otherwise, he could have taken more radical measures, like killing all the warriors and survivors to take all the ammunition for himself. Chapter 38. Situation in Haiqing in stark contrast to the intense reactions of the survivors. Li Xinqing only paused for a moment before saying, I understand, I get it. You could easily turn and leave or kill us to take our things, but you chose this way. I trust you and accept your price. If you are willing, our troops are also recruiting survivor militias. I see you have good marksmanship, and if we survive and you're interested, I can help connect you. Li Xinqing's empathy surprised Wang Cheng a bit. He had thought Li Xinqing might be dissatisfied. However, Li Xinqing seemed to sense Wang Cheng's thoughts, wiped the blood and dirt from his face, smiled slightly, and said, in these dire times, everyone is on edge. Not helping is just being practical. While helping is a matter of goodwill, you need some ammunition, so what's the big deal? Li Xinqing, a few years older than Wang Cheng, seemed to understand the logic of the survivors in this apocalypse clearly. He was subtly the leader of the four warriors, and when he spoke, the others did not object. Although technically, he shouldn't give ammunition to non-military personnel, which was a serious violation. Civilization was already on the brink of collapse, and who could worry about such rules anymore? The man with the horse-like face looked displeased and muttered, we should take their guns and share them among us. Aren't they just guns picked up from somewhere? Acting all important? Do they really think they can save the world? Wang Cheng had no time to waste on these irrelevant survivors, especially the man with the horse-like face. In Wang Cheng's view, these people couldn't see the situation clearly and were still talking nonsense in the face of disaster. That was just asking for trouble. Hearing the man's grumbling, he coldly glanced at him and said, then you go ahead. If you can kill a mutated creature, I'll give you a gun. Although Wang Cheng looks young, he has killed countless people and mutated beings during this time. Under his gaze, the man with the horse face was so frightened that he didn't dare to speak, let alone go after the mutated beings. Wang Cheng received a guarantee from Li Xinqing and immediately lifted his gaze. The enormous second mutation creature was almost upon them. Its head had split into 4 parts, covered in sharp teeth, making it nearly impossible to recognize as human, exhaling a foul stench. With its massive hands, it could easily flip a regular mutated being on the ground. The warriors fought while retreating, but Wang Cheng pulled out a grenade launcher and fired directly at it. 2 high-explosive grenades blew half of the second mutated creature into the air, leaving a bloody mess as it crashed to the ground. 5 energy points were credited. At the same time, Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao also took action. Today, it was mainly Wang Cheng using grenades, while Su Xinghai had not used much of his ability yet, and still had 12 water arrows to shoot. At this moment, he started unleashing a torrent of water, leaving the survivors behind in awe. The 3 of them brought powerful firepower and combat strength, stabilizing the situation and retreating together with the warriors. Even Li Xinqing and the other soldiers looked over in surprise. Who are you? I've never seen this type of grenade launcher before. And you even haven't awakened one among you. As they fought and retreated, they soon fell back to the street where Wang Cheng had just been, taking shelter in a small hot pot restaurant by the roadside. Inside, there was another mutated being lurking in the shadows. As the survivors rushed out, it lunged at them like lightning. Wang Cheng reacted quickly, raising his gun and firing. The shotgun blew its head off. Blood splattered across the walls. Turning around with his gun, Wang Cheng saw a crowd of survivors huddled together. The man with the horse face didn't even dare to meet Wang Cheng's gaze. Trembling as he looked down, not daring to say a word, Wang Cheng glanced outside. His warship was not far away. Retreating here was intentional on his part, to be closer to his warship in case of an emergency, allowing for a quick escape. Now that they were temporarily safe, the survivors looked anxious, some in a daze, others quietly sobbing, each with their own thoughts in this apocalyptic world. Li Xinqing and his uninjured companion were quickly tending to their teammates' injuries, while Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao stepped up to help. Over the past few days, hiding with the doctors and nurses from the gastroenterology hospital, they had learned a lot about nursing knowledge from them. Although those doctors and nurses specialized in gastroenterology, they were all graduates of medical schools and had a broad understanding of various aspects, which greatly benefited Wang Cheng and his companions. Wang Cheng even shared some food with them. Once Li Xinqing finished treating the injuries, Wang Cheng approached and asked, "How is it?" "Not bad. One brother just has a leg injury. We've stopped the bleeding. The other one is more serious. Whether he can be saved is still uncertain." Li Xinqing sighed, but he seemed to be accustomed to such situations. With just a sigh, there was not much sadness in his expression. Instead, he actively walked towards the ammunition box and, according to their agreement, allocated half a box of 7.62mm rifle rounds to Wang Cheng. The ammunition box was a standard model, containing cardboard packaging inside the metal case. With 500 rounds of bullets, he gave Wang Cheng a total of 250 rounds. Wang Cheng filled his prepared canvas bag completely. He was also in urgent need of ammunition. This resupply was crucial. "Thank you," Wang Cheng said. Li Xinqing replied, "We should be thanking you. Without you, we might have been done for. And those medicines, we appreciate your assistance. Have you received any training? I see you all are fighting against those mutated beings with professionalism and courage, not like ordinary people." Wang Cheng replied, "We are students from Haicheng University. Courage and professionalism. That's an exaggeration. It's just something we've developed to survive." Hearing this, Li Xinqing's expression changed. "I heard that a suspected level 5 mutated creature appeared at Haicheng University, its influence radiating throughout the entire campus. More than 90% of the people there have died. For you to escape, you're certainly not ordinary." Li Xinqing looked deeply at Wang Cheng and the others, seemingly surprised that a group of university students could achieve such a level in combating mutated beings. In his eyes, the combat abilities of Wang Cheng and the other three were not inferior to those of regular soldiers. This was not something just anyone could accomplish. Wang Cheng squinted. "Level 5 mutated creature? There indeed has been a terrifying being at Haicheng University. You are already aware? Actually, we haven't escaped for long. The first district is full of dangers. We don't dare to move around freely. Can you tell me what the situation is now? Where is your main force? What has happened to this world?" Level 5 creatures are categorized by the standards set above, with mutated beings and awakened individuals all classified according to danger levels. There are now 9 danger levels, with level 1 being the lowest and level 9 the highest. Your friend, at that level of awakened individual, if I'm not mistaken, should be a level 1 awakened, which means they have just begun to awaken and can skillfully utilize their basic abilities. In fact, most people are currently level 1 awakened, as no one knows how to advance from level 1 to level 2. Throughout Haicheng, it's hard to say if there is even a single level 2 awakened individual. If there is, that person would be a national treasure, as perhaps from them, others could find the right method to become level 2 awakened. As for level 5 mutated beings, to my knowledge, there are currently only 2 at Haicheng University, one in the outskirts and another right at the university. As for what has happened to this world, Li Xinqing smiled bitterly. "I don't know either. On the day of the apocalypse, my comrades turned into monsters. We were urgently summoned to action, and when we arrived here, we were also terrified. For days, we have been fighting against these mutated creatures. At first, it was organized divisions engaging in combat, but these mutated beings evolved too quickly. Some individuals even became stronger the more they were injured. We had hoped to reclaim the city in the shortest time possible, but of course, there is no need for you to panic. We are working hard to control the situation and will do our best to ensure the safety of all survivors. Now, we have broken into smaller groups, cooperating with local armed police, law enforcement, and others, actively searching for survivors. We have established a large gathering point for survivors in the Eastern District. If you are willing, we can move together to the Eastern District, which is currently the safest place in the entire city." After Li Xinqing finished speaking, he looked at Wang Cheng with anticipation, clearly hoping that Wang Cheng would join their team, which would be beneficial for them. However, Wang Cheng furrowed his brow deeply. The information Li Xinqing shared was overwhelming, and Wang Cheng needed time to digest it. Nevertheless, the situation in the city gradually became clearer in his mind. However, despite Li Xinqing's optimism, Wang Cheng was not foolish. He understood that there was more to the soothing words. The situation in the city was likely already dire. The fifth-level creatures from the university were still present, and there was even one in the university itself. Moreover, the survivor gathering point was in the eastern district, which was completely diagonal from where Wang Cheng and the others were at the university and the shopping center. The city was large, meaning that the distance from their location to that gathering point was at least over 20 kilometers. Chapter 39. You are seeking death. Wang Cheng did not respond immediately to Li Xinqing's invitation. He hesitated. Crossing almost the entire city to reach the gathering point with Li Xinqing was too dangerous. If they encountered other groups along the way, it might be manageable, but if they didn't, just the few of them, along with over 20 survivors, would make it seem more like a death march than a trip to a gathering point. This was a harsh reality. Even if they encountered military personnel, they could not guarantee them 100% safety. Perhaps for ordinary survivors, following a few warriors was better than trying to survive alone, but for Wang Cheng and the others, who had a certain level of strength as survivors, relying on military forces was not meaningful for them. As the sky gradually darkened, Wang Cheng contemplated for a while and ultimately decided to temporarily decline Li Xinqing's invitation. The risk was too great. Taking the chance to go now was not as good as staying here to continue developing cautiously. Once their capabilities increased, everything would be easier to handle. Li Xinqing felt regretful about Wang Cheng's decision but did not insist on keeping him. He also had his own thoughts. If Wang Cheng and his group could act together with them, the safety of both their team and the survivors would greatly improve. However, it would also sacrifice the interests of Wang Cheng and his two companions. Li Xinqing simply said, "If one day you arrive at the gathering point and need anything, feel free to come find me. Of course, if I happen to still be alive. However, I believe we will meet again." Wang Cheng replied, "Definitely. I wish you good luck in reuniting with the main forces." As the night had not completely fallen, Wang Cheng and the others set off again, preparing to return to the vicinity of the Pingsong market. They were already familiar with that area and could coordinate with Chunlan and the student council. And considering the unique nature of the underground parking lot, it was relatively safer, making it a suitable temporary stronghold. However, their return route was blocked by mutated entities. This was trouble Wang Cheng had created himself, as he had attracted numerous mutated entities from the Pingsong market today, congesting the streets with a dense mass that made his scalp tingle. Wang Cheng and his group had no choice but to take a detour, spreading out the map to find another small path to advance. The sky grew darker, the sun setting in the west, with half of the city bathed in neon light and the other half engulfed in shadows. A large number of mutated entities gathered on the main road, and as Wang Cheng and the others took a detour, they encountered fewer mutated entities, but the surroundings became increasingly silent. Wang Cheng shot at the mutated entities swaying on the road, the gunshots echoing between the buildings. Wang Cheng continued to accelerate, leaving the gunfire and the startled monsters behind. The normal road back was only about 3 kilometers, but now the detour extended the distance to nearly 5 kilometers. Before the apocalypse, this distance was nothing in a developed transportation era, but during the apocalypse, no matter how fast Wang Cheng went, it felt relatively slow compared to the past. At that moment, suddenly a figure appeared in the middle of the road ahead, stumbling and blocking the narrow street, shouting in terror, "Help me, help me." Seeing that figure, the expressions of Wang Cheng and the others became somewhat strange. It was a beautiful woman, but she was barely clothed, wearing only an open beige long coat with nothing underneath. As the wind blew, her coat flapped open, revealing her shivering form. Her hair was messy, and she was somewhat dirty, but it couldn't hide her beauty. Sitting in the car, Zhang Chao stared blankly, his eyes involuntarily drawn to the swaying figure. Muttering, "What's going on?" Outside, the woman looked panicked, disregarding her exposed state, and rushed towards their car. "Help me. Please, save me. Let me in. I'll do anything. I can make you do anything." She seemed to have encountered some horror, terrified and desperate, just wanting to get away with Wang Cheng and the others. Had she encountered monsters or humans? Su Xinghai frowned, wary of a trap. Wang Cheng's judgment was almost identical to Su Xinghai's. Although the thermal radar on the battleship did not detect any living beings nearby, the appearance of a woman running out desperately for help fell off. Although Wang Cheng glanced a few more times, it was instinctive. He wasn't a saint, just a young man full of vigor. However, this did not mean Wang Cheng would lose his mind. He immediately turned the car around, intending to pass by the woman without rolling down the window, coldly driving past her. The woman's face showed a moment of panic, but she quickly composed herself. acting as if she were in distress as she fell to the ground, pleading, "Don't abandon me." However, the next moment, her expression turned fierce. As the vehicle approached, she suddenly pulled out a handgun from behind her coat and fired at the window of the vehicle. If it had been a regular car, the glass would have shattered instantly and the occupants would have been shot. Su Xinghai was startled and instinctively ducked down to avoid the gunfire. But the car's window remained intact. The bullet struck the glass, leaving only a few white marks. It was bulletproof glass. Su Xinghai's eyes widened in surprise, while the woman seemed momentarily stunned. Yet her reaction was quick. Seeing that her shots had no effect, she jumped up and whistled sharply, running away with great speed. Her skin exposed, seemingly unconcerned and devoid of shame. Accompanying her whistle, the sound of roaring engines suddenly filled the air from all directions. Several motorcycles were racing toward them. A group of marauding bikers closing in. Wang Cheng and Su Xinghai's assessment was correct. There was indeed a trap. The woman was merely bait. If they had allowed her into the vehicle, she would have pulled out her hidden gun and opened fire inside, killing them all. If Wang Cheng and his group had been ordinary survivors, Su Xinghai, who had just been sitting in the passenger seat, might have already been shot dead. The bikers had been hiding at a distance, which was why Wang Cheng's radar hadn't detected them. Wang Cheng began to slow down as they were surrounded by the bikers. His gaze shifted around the vehicle. 8 motorcycles circled them, some riders armed with guns, others with machetes or similar weapons. The group consisted of young people dressed in flamboyant styles, led by a burly bald man with tattoos, who rode up to the woman and roughly pulled her onto his bike, openly groping her. The woman leaned against him like a rag doll, but spoke fiercely. "That car is bulletproof." "Bulletproof?" The bald man squinted, looking at Wang Cheng and the others inside the vehicle, barking, "Even bulletproof cars are made by that brand. Get out and hand over your supplies and vehicle, and I'll make it quick for you." The others joined in with shouts, "Get out! Get out! Hand over your stuff, or we have ways to make you wish you were dead." They were clearly experienced in this, having likely deceived and slaughtered many survivors before, brimming with arrogance, demanding supplies and lives, leaving no one unharmed. Wang Cheng's expression darkened. These people are armed, and it seems like a showdown is imminent. Su Xinghai whispered, "Since we're bulletproof, why don't we just charge through?" Wang Cheng shook his head. Although his warship was tough, it was still of a low grade, and even its appearance resembled a shabby electric vehicle. It might be manageable to rush through the mutated beings, but charging through these thugs would lead to problems if they shot at the tires. Wang Cheng sneered, "We don't need to charge in. They're just a bunch of meatbags. We're sitting in the vehicle. Are we afraid of a confrontation with them?" He didn't roll down the window, switched off the soundproof mode of the warship, and shouted, "We have no grievances with you. You give us a choice, and I'll give you one too. Turn around and leave immediately, or I'll make it quick for you." Upon hearing this threat, the group was momentarily stunned, then burst into laughter, including the attractive female thug, who shook with laughter, her excess flesh jiggling. Were they joking? A battered vehicle, bulletproof, could it be their opponent? They seemed to have been scared silly. "Haha, boss, let us not waste time talking to these idiots. Let us take action, smash their tires, crush their vehicle bit by bit, and then drag that guy out to break his spine piece by piece. Let us see if he can still be so arrogant then." Wang Cheng's gaze grew colder at this. He hadn't wanted to waste ammunition, but now, with no words left to say, he was ready to act. As darkness fell, Wang Cheng didn't want to waste time. He pressed the weapon module button, grasped the joystick, turned the vehicle towards the bald man at the forefront, and coldly said, "You're seeking death." In the next moment, the ship's machine gun module extended, and fire opened instantly. Chapter 40. The bird's nest on the streetlight. "You're seeking death." The bald man found this statement amusing. He guessed that the 3 people in the vehicle might also be armed. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so arrogant. But what could having guns do? Over a week had passed since the apocalypse began, and the bald man had been rampaging with his crew, even taking down a few armed police officers to acquire their weapons. These ordinary people, driving a ridiculous bulletproof mini-electric vehicle, what could they do with guns? Their motorcycles were speeding up. Even with guns, they couldn't hit them. Moreover, there were 9 of them against 3. Even if they had guns, they would be shot down in a hail of bullets. The bald man and his crew were actually acquainted before the apocalypse, part of a small motorcycle team from Haicheng University, performing occasionally and engaging in some unsavory activities. Before the end of the world, he had already injured others. And with the apocalypse here, the bald man felt it was their time to shine. They had vehicles and manpower. In this era, weren't they free to do as they pleased? Ordinary survivors stood no chance against them. Such thoughts echoed in the minds of the other motorcycle thugs as well. Their arrogance came from their character and the confidence gained from slaughtering numerous survivors in recent days. They never thought that Wang Cheng and his team had the ability to confront them. The woman even leaned close to the bald man's back, whispering softly, "I want that person's eyes. Kill him and dig them out for me, okay?" This group exhibited their cruel and bloodthirsty nature in the apocalypse. However, in the next moment, The faces of the bald man and his companions changed dramatically. They realized they had completely misjudged the situation, because in front of them, that seemingly ridiculous little Wuling car had unexpectedly revealed a dark cannon barrel from one side, rising up like a weapon system from a fighter jet. Then, it opened fire madly. Wang Cheng pressed the trigger directly inside the car while simultaneously turning the steering wheel. The Wuling battle vehicle swung its head wildly in place, with the weapon module that had merged with the vehicle unleashing a furious barrage. Although the power of the rifle had not increased and remained at a 7.62mm caliber, the ammunition capacity had significantly improved. After receiving rifle rounds from Li Xinqing, Wang Cheng had already loaded 100 rounds into the chamber. 100 rounds were enough to take down these thugs. The thugs were stunned. Wang Cheng didn't even need to get out of the car. He could shoot at them from inside. However, they were also a ruthless bunch. In the chaos, several were shot dead on the spot, but the remaining ones still returned fire. The pinpoint shooting from their bullets caused far more damage to the vehicle than the claws of the mutants, leaving bullet marks on Wang Cheng's vehicle, though they were still far from penetrating it. Wang Cheng transformed into a mobile artillery platform, firing wildly from within the armored vehicle, instantly causing chaos among the thugs. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were left dumbfounded. They knew Wang Cheng's car was not ordinary, but they never expected it to be this extraordinary, not only bulletproof, but also equipped with a light machine gun. He could shoot without getting out of the car? At that moment, Su Xinghai finally understood where Wang Cheng's confidence in not fearing a gunfight came from. They were in a vehicle that could withstand and retaliate, while the thugs were on motorcycles made of flesh and iron, lacking any protection. One burst of fire could take one down, yet they couldn't kill the three of them inside the car. In such a situation, they were already invincible. What was there to fear about a firefight? Just open fire and eliminate as many as they could. In an instant, 5 out of 8 motorcycles fell, with 5 thugs lying in a pool of blood, while the remaining 2 fled in a frenzy, completely forgetting their earlier arrogance. The bald man in charge had already been shot down, with 5 or 6 bullet holes in his body, blood pooling around him. He was lifeless, with only muscle spasms remaining. Wang Cheng's first shot was directed at him, and naturally, he bore the brunt of it. Until his death, the bald man's face still bore an expression of disbelief. They had been rampant for over 10 days. Yet they were taken down by 3 unremarkable survivors and a seemingly comical Wuling mini-vehicle. He couldn't understand it, nor could he believe it. Of course, what he couldn't understand the most was this vehicle. It was already armored, but how could it also have a machine gun? The woman, however, was still alive. Though she had been hit in the abdomen, she was desperately crawling on the ground, leaving a long trail of blood, eventually stopping under a nearby streetlight, leaning against it. Looking in Wang Cheng's direction, coughing up blood continuously. Her gun had long since fallen to the ground. Wang Cheng stopped firing the machine gun and opened the car door, stepping out with a titanium alloy dagger in hand. He picked up the gun that the woman had dropped, wiped the blood off with the clothes of the bald man, and tucked it into his pocket. After the recent gunfire, he had used over 50 rounds and didn't want to waste any more ammunition. He walked step by step to the streetlight. The woman was gasping heavily, despairing and desolate. She actively lifted her clothes and trembled as she said, "Please don't kill me. Save me, save me. I can do anything you want. I have a great figure. Look, you can see I never intended to harm you. It was all those bastards forcing me. I'm not with them." Her voice suddenly stopped. Her eyes widened in disbelief. This was because Wang Cheng, without saying a word, directly slit her throat. He didn't believe her words. If she had truly been forced, she wouldn't have shot at that moment. Wang Cheng hadn't reached the point of losing his senses. He was just deeply worried. The situation had deteriorated so much. He didn't know how his parents were doing. 2 thugs had escaped, but Wang Cheng didn't plan to chase them down. Having killed the leader, pursuing them would only waste time. However, after killing the woman, he didn't leave immediately. Instead, he furrowed his brows and looked around under the streetlight. Just before he killed her, he had heard a system prompt indicating the discovery of a special high-energy creature, and hunting it could yield a special serum and an energy point. But where were the monsters around here? Wang Cheng furrowed his brows deeply. He had already experienced the benefits of the special serum. It was an important way to directly enhance his abilities, and he didn't want to miss the opportunity. If he could get extra, it would also help Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai enhance themselves again. After pondering for a moment, Wang Cheng suddenly thought of something and looked up sharply. He saw that above the streetlight where he was standing, there was a bird's nest the size of a basketball, and in it was a blood-red creature resembling a sparrow, but several times larger. Tilting its head to look at him, when it saw Wang Cheng looking at it, it even let out a strange squawk. Wang Cheng narrowed his eyes. It must be it. No wonder it was only worth 1 energy point. It turned out to be such a small creature. But could such a small thing also have a special serum? It wouldn't be flight capability, would it? Wang Cheng thought for a moment and slowly aimed his pistol at it. The strange bird didn't seem to understand what Wang Cheng was doing. appearing dazed and oblivious to fear even with the gun pointed at it, instead curiously staring at him with its slightly frightening crimson eyes, looking left and right. Until, with a bang, Wang Cheng's marksmanship was precise. With one shot, he took down the small bird, its head pierced cleanly, falling right into its own nest. He was momentarily stunned. The streetlight stood 5 meters tall, and to obtain the serum, he needed to get its body down. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao behind him were confused about what Wang Cheng was doing. The sky was about to darken, and after eliminating a group of thugs, he was now shooting birds in the street. Then, Wang Cheng, using both hands and feet, began to climb the streetlight. Previously, he wouldn't have been able to do this, but now, with enhanced physical abilities and incredible strength, he relied solely on brute force to ascend. He instructed Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao to provide cover while he went up to retrieve the bird's nest. Zhang Chao, dumbfounded, exclaimed, "Second brother, did you kill a beautiful woman and are now venting your frustration? Or do you want to eat roasted bird? That bird is clearly mutated. You can't eat it." Hearing Zhang Chao's words, Wang Cheng's mouth twitched, almost causing him to fall off the streetlight. Just then, a series of system notifications rang in his mind. "Dear host, a special mutated creature has been detected. Killing it can yield special serum and 55 energy points." "Dear host, a special mutated creature has been detected. Killing it can yield special serum and 55 energy points." Wang Cheng was momentarily taken aback. Sensing something was amiss, he looked up and saw 2 terrifying, blood-red monster birds swooping down from the horizon. Their crimson eyes were almost identical to the one Wang Cheng had just killed, but they were many times larger, each with a wingspan exceeding 5 meters and a body length close to that of a car. Screaming wildly, they charged at Wang Cheng recklessly. Wang Cheng gasped. It turned out he had only killed a small one. Zhang Chao shouted, "Second brother, this is bad. Its parents are coming for revenge. Get down quickly." As the dark sky loomed, Wang Cheng initially didn't notice the 2 giant mutated birds diving down until their chilling screams pierced the darkness. Only then did he realize he had become the target of these 2 monstrous creatures. These giant mutated birds were clearly enlarged versions of the small one he had just taken down, casting ominous shadows over him. The sky hadn't fully darkened, yet Wang Cheng's vision was already engulfed in darkness. At this moment, he had climbed over 4 meters up the 5-meter streetlight pole, the nest within reach. But faced with the imminent attack, he found himself in a precarious situation. The 2 mutated giant birds, with their blood-red eyes, clearly possessed more intelligence than the human mutants and were descending in fury, seeking revenge. "Get down," Zhang Chao yelled, firing his gun wildly. Su Xinghai, like an ant on a hot pan, desperately shot water arrows. Wang Cheng was equally anxious. In a critical moment, he still refused to give up on the easily obtainable small mutated bird. While that small mutated bird wasn't worth much in energy points, it was invaluable for the precious special serum it contained. That serum could enhance him more than 5 or 6 energy points could. Wang Cheng harnessed the immense power and speed granted by the strength serum and speed serum, leaping directly from a streetlight over 4 meters high. He knocked aside a bird's nest and grabbed the corpse of a mutated chick, which was already lifeless, urgently extracting the special serum while plummeting downwards. Using his other hand to grip the streetlight pole, he slowed his descent with brute force, causing his palm to break and bleed profusely, yet he managed to land steadily. Behind him, the 2 giant birds became even more frenzied, letting out piercing cries as they dove down. Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai were stunned. "Old Wang, you're too obsessed. What do you want with that mutated bird's corpse? Isn't this just angering them more? Less talk, get in the car." Wang Cheng rolled on the ground just as one giant bird crashed down where he had just been, its mutated claws more terrifying than iron, instantly shattering the hard asphalt. Wang Cheng felt his scalp tingle, fully aware that if that claw landed on him, it would surely tear through flesh and organs, spilling blood everywhere. The 2 mutated giant birds continued to shriek as they took off, recklessly diving towards him. The wind from their wings knocked Su Xinghai, an awakened individual with above-average physical capabilities, off balance, almost toppling him to the ground. "Get in the car." Seeing this, Zhang Chao and Su Xinghai were both dumbstruck. Su Xinghai shouted, "Aren't you going to throw away their chick's corpse?" At that moment, Wang Cheng tossed aside the mutated bird's corpse. The serum was already in hand. He glanced at the system prompt, frowning. This time, the name of the extracted special serum was surprisingly, Special Serum Unknown Type. Unknown? The system can't scan everything? However, there was no time to think about it. Wang Cheng successfully drew the attention of the 2 giant birds by throwing the mutated chick, causing them to momentarily cease their pursuit and land beside their offspring, touching its body with their claws and wings as if trying to awaken it. Unfortunately, the chick had already been shot dead by Wang Cheng, and after the serum extraction, its body had shriveled significantly. A light touch would signal its imminent disintegration, which was quite alarming. The two mutated giant birds let out a heart-wrenching wail, their eyes growing increasingly blood-red. At this moment, the trio had taken the opportunity to board the battleship. Wang Cheng wasted no time, activating his Wuling battleship and accelerating away. Through the rearview mirror, he saw the two mutated giant birds take off, their blood-red wings blocking out the sun. Then, in the darkened world, their bodies began to glow faintly, as if fiery red veins were coursing through them. Suddenly, boom! Wang Cheng sharply turned the steering wheel. Two terrifying fire beams shot out from the mouths of the two mutated giant birds, hurtling down at high speed in midair. Wang Cheng swiftly dodged the first attack, as a fiery blast struck the ground like a bomb, exploding with a brilliant flash and leaving a massive pit filled with debris. However, he couldn't escape the second attack, which landed squarely on top of his warship. The armor of the ship instantly sounded an alarm, and Wang Cheng felt a heat radiating from above, with a large section of the roof turning red hot. If it had been an ordinary car, that blow would have likely burned right through it, turning anyone inside into a human torch. What the hell? Can it even breathe fire? Wang Cheng exclaimed in shock. He had never expected that these two creatures could spew fire, possessing a flame ability similar to that of the awakened Shenlong, catching him completely off guard. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao also changed color. Su Xinghai looked at the flames on the ground and said, "The power and speed of the fireballs it spits out are on a whole different level than Shenlan's. My water arrows are just tiny splashes in comparison. They're coming. Run, run, second brother." Zhang Chao shouted in terror. The three of them were filled with dread. Behind them, the two mutated giant birds were frantically pursuing, their bodies glowing red as they descended from the sky. With the capabilities of these two monsters, if they were caught, death was certain, even with a warship. It would only be a matter of time before it was breached. Wang Cheng felt a chill run down his spine and, without hesitation, activated the nitrous boost. The first-level Wuling warship shot out like a cannonball, the exhaust pipe bursting with flames as it accelerated rapidly, racing away. He never imagined that what he thought was a harmless little mutated creature had such a powerful backing. The two giant birds were clearly enraged, chasing them relentlessly. Wang Cheng's nitrous boost forced him forward, trying to create distance. Fire lines shot crazily from behind, attacking the ground and buildings, engulfing everything in flames. The mutated creatures in front were drawn to the chaos, emerging from the streets in droves, howling as they came to attack. Wang Cheng dropped his machine gun, firing at the front. Anything he couldn't take down was rammed into, using his terrifying momentum and speed to send the opponents flying 2 or 3 meters away. Su Xinghai was spread out with a map, trying to find their direction, as they had lost their bearings in the urban chaos. However, Wang Cheng noticed that these mutated creatures were also attacking each other. The mutated beings would even actively target the giant birds, slowing them down and posing a threat. Wang Cheng's eyes narrowed as he abruptly changed direction, charging towards areas dense with mutated creatures. This tactic proved effective. They sped through before the mutated beings could encircle them. But the giant birds trailing closely behind encountered groups of mutated creatures, which significantly reduced their pursuit speed. Wang Cheng quickly turned his head and parked the vehicle at an intersection ahead, the car shaking violently as it nearly crashed into a wall. The roar of the giant birds echoed behind them, and there were many mutated creatures around, even more than near the amusement park. Wang Cheng and Su Xinghai jumped out of the vehicle, shooting down several of the mutated beings, and retreated into a large 3-story hot pot restaurant, closing the door tightly to block the creatures outside. Soon, the two mutated giant birds followed, swooping down but losing their target, circling and screeching, clearly unwilling to give up on the ones who had killed their young. Wang Cheng and Su Xinghai were still shaken. Wang Cheng hadn't expected to stir up a hornet's nest. He realized that mutated creatures were indeed terrifying. Even his current warship was not invincible. One wrong move could still lead to a deadly encounter with these horrific beings. Of course, this was partly because his warship was not yet at a high enough level, lacking sufficient firepower and unable to truly take to the skies. Thus, to avoid the two giant mutated birds, they temporarily exited the warship, hiding to avoid detection. Fortunately, the mutated creatures showed no interest in inanimate objects, so there was no need to worry about the warship being damaged outside. Wang Cheng lowered his head, looking at the unknown special serum in his palm, deep in thought. But he quickly raised his head, realizing that they were not the only ones in the hot pot restaurant. There were survivors here. The night had fully descended, and a half-covered light lit up the restaurant, revealing several blurry silhouettes. Wang Cheng gripped his shotgun tightly, remaining vigilant. But before he could clearly see who they were, he heard someone among the survivors exclaim in surprise, "Is it you? I know you." Chapter 42. She is not someone we can afford to provoke outside. The mutated creatures were distracted by the giant birds, running around like headless flies in the street, following the giant birds as they circled in the air. It sounded absurd, but the scene was terrifying. A group of humanoid mutated beings with split heads twisted and swayed on the ground like waves, chasing after the larger mutated creatures, resembling a night of 100 demons in the dark. Inside the hot pot restaurant, the survivors in front of Wang Chung became clearer. There were 3 men, one of whom was dressed in black security attire distinct from military or police uniforms, holding a handgun with a professional stance, approaching cautiously. The other 2 were ordinary survivors. The one who recognized Wang Chung was a young man among the ordinary survivors. Su Xinghai whispered, "I know him. He is from our dormitory building. What's his name?" "Zhao Mingjie." Zhao Mingjie nodded excitedly. "Yes, I'm Zhao Mingjie from the Mechanical Engineering Class 3. I took a public speaking elective with Hu Yiming from your dorm." It wasn't easy to encounter someone familiar in this apocalypse, especially when they were from the same school and dormitory building. Zhao Mingjie was aware of the strength of Wang Chung and his companions in the dormitory building. At that time, he wanted to follow them but was rejected. Fortunately, Wang Chung and the others did not drive him away, allowing Zhao Mingjie to hide relatively safely in the dormitory building. He had secretly blamed Wang Chung for not providing more help to people like him. But later, when the university was completely overrun by 5th-level mutated creatures and he was forced to flee, he realized how safe and precious the time spent in the dormitory building had been. Now, seeing Wang Chung and the others, he felt a mix of gratitude and excitement, considering them as the most reliable allies. The security personnel appeared particularly vigilant, glancing at the weapons in Wang Cheng's group, but not saying anything. After confirming they were survivors, he quickly holstered his weapon and retreated into the shadows. There were quite a few survivors in the hot pot restaurant, at least a dozen, both men and women, young and old, mostly hiding on the 2nd floor. A few male survivors took turns keeping watch on the 1st floor. They were trapped here by the mutated creatures and were too afraid to go outside. Although they had a few guns, the number of mutated creatures outside was overwhelming. So they had been waiting for military rescue, but instead, they encountered Wang Chung and 2 terrifying mutated giant birds. When they noticed someone had arrived, they peeked out, thinking it was their savior. However, upon realizing it was not military personnel, disappointment washed over their faces. One man even whispered, "When will the military find us here?" Zhao Mingjie, however, was quite excited. He pulled Wang Chung and the others upstairs to hide. Listening to the eerie calls of the mutated giant birds outside, he nervously said, "I don't know what kind of monsters these are or where they came from, but they look even scarier than those mutated creatures. We must be careful and stay quiet here. We can't disturb these 2 monsters. Why won't they leave?" Wang Chung and the others exchanged glances, all wearing strange expressions. They couldn't go out now, nor could they return to the previous safe spot, so they had to make do and wait here for a while. At least until morning. The hot pot restaurant was not small. It was a well-known establishment in the city. However, the interior was now a mess, seemingly ransacked by survivors, with bloodstains in many places. The 2nd floor was no different, with the giant birds prowling around. No one dared to turn on their flashlights, and everyone huddled together for warmth. Zhao Mingjie also brought Wang Chung and his companions over. It was very quiet here, almost no one spoke. Wang Chung and the others were new faces, and the others only shot them wary glances. When they saw the gun in Wang Cheng's hand, they silently moved a bit farther away, but that was all. In this desolate apocalypse, people seemed to have grown numb. However, Wang Chung noticed another security personnel, similar in appearance to the one below, also armed, but he was guarding a girl in her 20s, as if protecting her. The girl was not tall, but had a nice figure, with well-defined features and fair skin. Sitting there, she appeared calmer than the other survivors, dressed in a clean, short skirt like a typical student, giving off a very pure vibe. Wang Chung was observing her, and she was also studying him, particularly glancing at his firearm a few extra times. Wang Chung was the first to look away. He had no interest in strangers. They were all survivors, meeting by chance, and there was no need for any trouble. Wang Chung and the others were pulled aside by Zhao Mingjie to rest. They had been on the move all day and were feeling somewhat fatigued. However, Zhao Mingjie appeared quite excited, making an effort to talk to Wang Chung and the others, sharing his experiences from the past few days, with a face full of hardship and sorrow. As he introduced himself, he mentioned he was from the mechanical class on the 3rd floor. At the onset of the apocalypse, he and another roommate had miraculously survived, and later, thanks to Wang Chung and his group clearing out the mutated beings in the dormitory, they had managed to stay safe for a while. But then, something happened in Haicheng, making it impossible for them to stay, so he and his roommate had to flee. At that time, he had watched Wang Chung drive away, filled with jealousy. Eventually, they managed to escape from Haicheng University, but luck ran out when they encountered a mutated grizzly bear lurking nearby, and his roommate was swallowed whole. At this point, Zhao Mingjie said with a sense of despair, "My parents and grandparents are in another city. They're old, and if it's this hard for us young people, what will they do? I want to go back, but there's no way." This big guy was getting emotional, his eyes reddening as if he were about to cry at any moment. Su Xinghai, taking on the role of a diplomat, had been communicating with Zhao Mingjie, and he sighed, patting his back. He was also deeply worried. However, he understood that the apocalypse had already lasted for over 10 days, and going back now would be of little significance. He could only pray in his heart that his family had been rescued and protected by the military. Wang Cheng, who had been lost in thought, looked up and remembered his family in Fengtian. He wondered if they had prepared supplies as he requested and whether they had managed to hide. Would he ever see them again? Taking a deep breath, Wang Cheng tightened his grip on the precious vial of special serum he held. This mutated giant bird seemed capable of producing special serum, regardless of whether it was juvenile or adult. But why was this serum classified as unknown? Was it something that could not be identified even after injection? Wang Cheng quietly called upon the system, seeking an answer. Dear host, the unknown serum could not be successfully scanned for its components, as it is not recorded in the existing database. Please use it with caution. Wang Cheng took another deep breath. This vial looked no different from the others. The serum obtained from the extremely fast mutated house cat was speed-based, while that from the mutated giant dog was strength-based. Analyzing from this perspective, the serum's function was closely related to the abilities of the mutated creature from which it originated. Holding the vial of unknown serum, Wang Cheng couldn't help but think of the terrifying fire-breathing ability of that giant bird. Could it be? A surprising guess formed in his mind. But to verify it, he would have to inject it himself to test it, which certainly carried risks. At this moment, Zhang Xiao was opening his backpack and taking out some items, preparing to share with Wang Cheng and the others. Come on, boss, second brother Zhao, have something to eat. Their vehicle was loaded with supplies, and before getting off, Zhang Xiao had packed his backpack with food to ensure he could eat and replenish after hiding. Canned goods, chocolate, bread, biscuits, and even yogurt, everything was there. Sitting nearby, Zhao Mingjie was still chatting with Su Xinghai, but upon seeing so much food, his eyes instantly widened, and he momentarily lost his train of thought. At the same time, all the survivors in the room turned their attention towards them. It was no longer the beginning of the apocalypse. It had been over 10 days since it broke out. Although food was not yet critically scarce, obtaining it had become increasingly difficult. It seemed that the ingredients in this hot pot restaurant had already been swept clean, and most survivors here had little to offer, looking haggard and clearly having been trapped here for several days. They were all hungry and likely hadn't eaten a full meal in days, so the appearance of food right in front of them was sure to attract their attention. Zhang Xiao had barely taken out a few items from his backpack when he was already being watched. But this was inevitable. Everyone was hiding here, and Wang Cheng and the others couldn't just refrain from eating. Moreover, Zhang Xiao's backpack was right there. Even if he didn't take out the items, others would still notice it. Of course, the key factor was that Wang Cheng and the others had weapons and were not afraid of others harboring ill intentions. At this moment, when Zhang Xiao began to pull things out, it was actually a deliberate act. It was better to put things out in the open than to be secretly targeted. Therefore, Wang Cheng immediately drew his handgun from his waist, pressed it against the ground, and scanned the other survivors with a sharp gaze. The ordinary survivors instantly fell silent, not daring to approach. They hadn't eaten well in a long time, but it hadn't reached the point where they would risk their lives for food. Their need for food and other supplies was still in a middle stage of urgency and not lacking. With this, Wang Cheng successfully dispelled any unnecessary thoughts from these survivors. Rather than sneaking around to eat, being open and direct while simultaneously intimidating others was a better strategy. Anyone with ulterior motives would think twice before acting. However, there were a few exceptions in the crowd. A girl in her 20s had been staring at them, and after a moment, she whispered something to the security guard beside her. The guard then stood up and approached them. Before getting too close, he lifted his clothing to reveal a handgun at his waist. You have a lot of food. Could you share a bag of chocolate with us? Wang Cheng was on high alert, but before he could respond, the guard slightly bent down and grabbed a bag of chocolate that Zhang Xiao had taken out. Strangely, the moment his fingers touched the chocolate packaging, an icy chill radiated from him, and a layer of frost formed on the packaging. He was an awakened one. Wang Cheng's eyes suddenly glinted with cold light. While Wang Cheng and his group were showcasing their supplies and demonstrating their strength to intimidate the other survivors at this moment, this security guard was also demonstrating his power, trying to intimidate Wang Cheng. A series of actions clearly conveyed the message. I know you have guns, and so do I. Not only do I have a gun, but I'm also an awakened one. I'm different from the survivors you can intimidate. So you better hand over that bag of chocolate. On one side, witnessing this scene, Zhao Mingjie's expression changed drastically as he whispered, Brother Wang, don't be impulsive. She is not someone we can afford to provoke. Chapter 43. The importance of supplies. Chocolate is a high-calorie food. Before the catastrophe, it was nothing special. You could find chocolate products in any supermarket. But in this disastrous era, it's worth more than regular biscuits. The pack that Zhang Xiao just took out was a whole board, weighing 100 grams. At this moment, it was being crushed in the opponent's palm. covered with a layer of chilling frost. The ice crystals seemed to spread as if they were alive. Wang Cheng was locking eyes with the security personnel, coldly asking, "What if I don't give it to you?" Zhang Xiao and Su Xinghai's bodies tensed up instantly. They had been cooperating for a long time and clearly understood that Wang Cheng was ready to act at any moment. Once he struck, they would immediately back him up. Even if this person was awakened, they wouldn't gain any advantage. I advise you not to seek trouble. The security personnel's gaze remained fixed on the handgun placed beside Wang Cheng, eyes unblinking. At this moment, Zhao Mingjie whispered, "Don't get into a conflict with them. That girl is the daughter of someone important, and these two are here to protect her." No wonder there were two armed security personnel around the girl. Moreover, these two were clearly professional gunmen. Wang Cheng understood the situation. Zhao Mingjie was nervous, fearing to offend the other party, but Wang Cheng and the others remained motionless. What kind of era was this? A global catastrophe, an apocalyptic tide. No matter who your father is, everything needs to be reshuffled in this time. You better think it through, Wang Cheng said, his hand just a few centimeters away from the gun. As long as he raised his hand, he could grab it. Your companion is still downstairs. If you engage with us, even if you think you can kill one or two of us, you will definitely die. If you die, what will happen to the daughter of that important figure behind you? If you're dead, what is the point of protecting her? Wang Cheng's words struck like nails into the heart of the security personnel, and the tense expression on his face began to show subtle changes. Wang Cheng wasn't foolish. He wondered about the girl's background. One word from her made the security personnel risk conflict for chocolate. It seemed that while the girl might not be anything special, her father could be a significant figure. Thinking this way, it was easy to conclude that these two were protecting her and obeying her to please her father. But if these two lost their lives, the girl would also perish. Wouldn't everything they were doing now become meaningless? Wang Cheng didn't know if these people had taken advantage of others because of their identities and abilities. But as far as he was concerned, dream on. No matter who you are, if you want to steal my things, don't even think about it. Even if she is the daughter of a prominent figure, isn't she just stuck here waiting for someone to rescue her? At this moment, the girl, who had been silent, suddenly spoke up. "I can trade with you. I have a jade bracelet from the Qing dynasty." She clearly wasn't that naive and realized the situation was not right. So she changed her offer. However, Wang Cheng frowned upon hearing this, unsure whether the girl was clever or foolish. While trying to ease the tension, she mentioned the Qing dynasty jade bracelet. Wasn't that revealing her wealth and inviting greed? Did she grow up under her father's protection, being clever but lacking experience? Or did she still rely on the strength of her two bodyguards? Wang Cheng didn't know. He wasn't interested in the bracelet and was about to refuse when suddenly an idea struck him. He changed his mind and said, "All right, let's do it." Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao exchanged surprised glances. This was not the style of Wang Cheng they knew. Just moments ago, the security personnel had boasted about their strength. And now the other party had retreated. Yet Wang Cheng had also relented. But he didn't explain anything and directly completed the transaction. One bar of chocolate was exchanged for a bracelet. Wang Cheng's expression remained unchanged. He wasn't particularly interested in the bracelet, but he examined it in his hands. Feeling its texture, even if it wasn't from the Qing dynasty, it was certainly not a cheap trinket. He wiped it on his clothes and tucked it into his pocket. The girl watched his actions, appearing to want to say something, but ultimately held her tongue, perhaps thinking that Wang Cheng didn't know how to preserve it properly. But in the end, she said nothing. The transaction was complete. The bracelet no longer belonged to her. The others looked on with strange expressions. This Qing dynasty jade bracelet was worth a fortune and was something they, as ordinary college students, could hardly ever access before the apocalypse. Yet now, they had traded it for a bar of chocolate. Zhang Xiao was somewhat bewildered as he opened his backpack and saw a few more bars of the same chocolate inside. Wondering to himself, is this food really so valuable? Zhao Mingjie also looked stunned, swallowing hard as his gaze shifted between the people around him, unsure of what to say. The girl and her two bodyguards had previously been a source of reliance for many survivors here and were not people to be offended. They had always been quite assertive. But now, in front of Wang Cheng, they had become compliant, following the rules and trading instead of resorting to coercion. This was the apocalypse. This was the difference between those with power and those without. As Zhao Mingjie thought about this, he felt inexplicably dejected and dim. But he quickly cheered up when Su Xinghai handed him a piece of bread. Although he lacked strength, he at least knew people who were powerful. Zhao Mingjie felt immensely grateful. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Su Xinghai felt a bit ashamed. He had originally intended to give Zhao Mingjie a piece of bread and a pack of sausage, but he was also taken aback by the recent exchange. Realizing that the lavish meals he enjoyed daily were not something everyone could afford, the preciousness of resources outside was rising in value every day. Therefore, Su Xinghai ultimately only offered him a piece of bread. Despite this, Zhao Mingjie was deeply moved, opening the bread and devouring it with great appetite. He mentioned that he hadn't really eaten anything decent for 2 days, having only drunk a little water and eaten a few wilted vegetable leaves. This was also reflected in the daughter of the prominent figure sitting across from him. The girl was clearly a well-bred young lady, accustomed to a life without worries about food. Once she got her hands on the chocolate, she also displayed a bit of ravenousness. But to the surprise of Wang Cheng and the others, she divided the chocolate into 3 pieces, sharing one with each of her 2 bodyguards. The security personnel was equally surprised and touched, simply saying, "Thank you, miss." Wang Cheng began to eat vigorously as well. They had been running from monsters all day, barely having anything to eat. After injecting the serum, his physical abilities had increased, but he felt a greater consumption of energy and was more easily hungry. At this moment, he ate without restraint, but when he turned his head, he noticed Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao eating cautiously, clearly reluctant to indulge. Upon inquiry, Wang Cheng couldn't help but laugh. Zhang Chao whispered, "Brother, it's not that I'm not hungry, but just thinking about this piece of chocolate is like eating a jade bracelet. I can't bring myself to do it." Su Xinghai didn't say much, but his expression clearly conveyed the same sentiment. Wang Cheng's mouth twitched as he tried to persuade them, eventually succeeding. Su Xinghai sighed, "Old Wang, it's only now that I truly understand how important the supplies you brought back were. The longer the apocalypse lasts, the more valuable the supplies become. It's laughable to think of those who mocked you for going crazy. If they were still alive now, they would probably be crying and trying to imitate you." While they were eating, other survivors could only sit in the corners, staring at them with hunger. However, they still retained their reason and refrained from any outrageous behavior. Meanwhile, the daughter of the prominent figure in the corner kept glancing over at them. Though her intentions were unclear, Wang Cheng didn't mind. After finishing their food, they took turns resting for the night as planned. Outside, there were many mutated creatures, and the 2 giant birds continued to circle nearby, clearly infuriated with Wang Cheng and refusing to leave. For now, they couldn't go out and had to hide here. As night fell, many people fell into a deep sleep. In the darkness, it was silent, except for the faint sounds of monsters growling from downstairs. Not far away, on the rooftop, the giant birds perched atop a tall building, seemingly asleep, like flesh and blood statues, completely still but still unwilling to depart. The streets outside were filled with many mutated creatures, trapping the survivors here in a suffocating silence that permeated the air with a faint sense of despair. Wang Cheng heard Zhao Mingjie say that they were all waiting for the military to come and rescue them. When Wang Cheng and the others arrived, if it weren't for those mutated creatures being distracted by the giant mutated birds, they might not have made it inside. However, Wang Cheng was not anxious because his battleship was outside. Even though there were many mutated creatures outside, as long as the giant mutated birds left, he was confident that he could charge out relying on the battleship's defensive capabilities, so he certainly didn't have to feel as desperate as the survivors here. At that moment, Wang Cheng took stock of his energy points. Unknowingly, he had over 170 energy points. He had lost track of how many mutated creatures he had killed throughout the day, especially later when, bolstered by resupplied ammunition, he was being chased by the giant birds. He had fired continuously with the mounted rifle, nearly exhausting the bullets he had obtained from Li Xinqing. The number of mutated creatures he had killed, combined with those he had crushed, made the energy point count reasonable. This meant he was only 130 energy points away from upgrading to a level 2 battleship. Wang Cheng felt pleased for a moment, but then quietly took out a syringe containing an unknown serum from his pocket, staring intently at it in the darkness, his eyes flickering. He had his own guesses about the serum's purpose. The abilities of mutated organisms could be extracted from their bodies, and he was well aware of the significant capabilities of the 2 giant mutated birds beyond just flight. So, if he followed this line of thinking, could injecting this serum awaken a fire ability as well? As this thought crossed his mind, Wang Cheng couldn't help but take a deep breath. He knew that speculation wouldn't solve the problem, so after confirming with the system that the serum, even though unknown, was harmless to the human body, he pondered for a moment and then moved to a secluded corner to inject it directly. Chapter 44. The mysterious serum. The special serum extracted by the system couldn't possibly harm him, which was why Wang Cheng dared to inject it. Moreover, he couldn't use it on anyone else for testing. If something went wrong with Zhang Chao or Su Xinghai, he would regret it immensely. If he used it on an enemy, and it turned out to be as powerful as he suspected, awakening abilities similar to the giant bird's fire breathing, it would be inviting trouble. From another perspective, the origin of the serum was also unexplainable. It was less troublesome to inject it himself. Of course, Wang Cheng had confirmed with the system that even if it was useless, it wouldn't have significant side effects, which was why he was willing to try. Otherwise, even if he knew it could potentially provide a powerful fire superpower, he wasn't reckless enough to take such a massive risk. That would be foolish, not a mere attempt. After all, he was currently hiding here, relatively safe, with nothing else to do, making it a perfect opportunity for experimentation. Acting on his thoughts was a good habit of Wang Cheng's. But as soon as he injected it, He clearly felt the difference between this special serum and the previous 2 injections. After the previous 2 injections, Wang Cheng didn't feel much difference. About half an hour later, his circulatory system automatically completed the digestion and absorption, granting him the extraordinary abilities provided by the special serum. However, this time, as soon as the serum was injected into his body, Wang Cheng felt a sharp burning sensation. The serum flowed through his body like magma, scorching his blood vessels and internal skin, creating an indescribable heat and sensation. After enduring for a short while, he realized the feeling was intensifying. His complexion changed, and he instinctively grabbed a bottle of water and gulped it down. In just a few seconds, he finished a 500-milliliter bottle of mineral water. He felt like his throat was on fire, and it seemed as if he was about to ignite. His condition felt slightly better, but only for a moment. The digestion of this special serum was quite strange. It seemed that the effect of the water had vanished in an instant. The burning sensation rose from his abdomen, flowing towards his limbs, as if the water he drank had been ignited by an unknown fire, even surging up to his head. When Wang Cheng touched his forehead, he was startled to find it extremely hot. Realizing something was wrong, he hurriedly tried to wake up Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao beside him. However, after taking just a couple of steps, he felt dizzy, and everything around him became hazy. With a thud, he collapsed straight to the ground. The loud noise startled everyone in the hot pot restaurant on the second floor. Many survivors woke up, looking around in panic. The girl in the short skirt also stood up. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao were both startled awake and were shocked to see Wang Cheng unconscious. Zhang Chao checked Wang Cheng's forehead and changed color. Just as he was about to say something, Su Xinghai quickly covered his mouth, shook his head, and gestured towards the others, especially the daughter of a prominent figure and the security personnel. They were all looking in their direction. People can be unpredictable. If they knew Wang Cheng had collapsed, they might have ulterior motives, especially the daughter of that prominent figure. They had just had a confrontation, and who knew if they would seize the opportunity to act? Zhang Chao, who had a carefree personality, wasn't he foolish? After the reminder, he was taken aback and swallowed the words he was about to say. They took the unconscious Wang Cheng to a corner on the second floor to avoid being seen. Zhang Chao then whispered, "Boss, he's running a fever. His temperature is too high. Quickly, get some water. Do you have a medical kit? Is there any alcohol?" Zhang Chao nodded repeatedly. Yes. I don't know if we'll have a chance to get back to the car, but I took a little bit of everything." The night was deep, and the hot pot restaurant was dark. Su Xinghai and Zhang Chao, avoiding everyone's gaze, tried to cool Wang Cheng down in the corner. But the effect was minimal. Zhang Chao was anxious as if he were an ant on a hot pan. Why is everyone getting a fever one after another? Boss, do you think Ergo is about to awaken too? Damn it. It would be great if we were still in the market, and those doctors and nurses were here. Su Xinghai's expression darkened, and Zhang Chao panicked. But he knew that as the leader, he couldn't show fear. He had to stabilize the situation. If he panicked, everything would be over. He wasn't sure what was happening outside, but he knew that burning like this wasn't the solution. Without doctors, he had to find one. There was no choice. He would take the risk to ask the survivors here if there were any doctors. If not, Su Xinghai didn't finish his sentence, his gaze shifting to the outside. Outside the hot pot restaurant, mutated giant birds circled above, and mutated creatures crowded the streets. The meaning in his eyes was very clear. If there were none here, he would have to go out to look for one. His decision mirrored that of the city at that time. No matter what, he couldn't watch his companions suffer and die from fever, no matter the risk. He had to take it. Su Xinghai picked up Wang Cheng's shotgun, stood up, and prepared to search for other survivors. Just then, a deafening explosion sounded outside. The dark street suddenly brightened. It was a burst of flames. Outside the window, gunfire erupted, growing closer. Many pale-faced survivors on the second floor of the hot pot restaurant stood up, rushing to the window, excitedly looking out. The military had arrived. Their saviors were here. Someone was coming to save us. They were all ordinary people, too scared to confront the mutated creatures, especially with so many outside. Having been trapped here for so long, lacking food and clothing, seeing the military arrive filled them with immense excitement and joy, as if they had already been saved. Outside, a burning armored vehicle and 2 military off-road vehicles were rapidly approaching from another street, with soldiers firing wildly. Behind them, a swarm of mutated creatures followed, and among them was a terrifyingly large mutated grizzly bear, towering 10 meters tall, as high as a 3-story building, with fur that was a mix of black and red, and blood-red eyes that howled fiercely. In its palm, it was gripping a military off-road vehicle like a toy, with soldiers on top struggling. Amidst the gunfire, the bullets hitting it felt like mere tickles, unable to shake it at all. It roared with power, suddenly tearing the massive military vehicle apart in its grip. In the flickering firelight, it let out a thunderous roar that shook the ground, while the military vehicles were thrown into chaos, fleeing in panic from it and the horde of mutated creatures. However, at that moment, the mutated grizzly bear suddenly changed its target, roaring at the sky. Its arrival startled two nearby mutated giant birds, which shifted from stillness to movement, rising from the darkness, circling in the air, howling repeatedly, confronting the mutated grizzly bear. In the sky and on the ground, the enormous beasts roared in the street, creating a scene that was absurd and terrifying, as if the earth was no longer the dominion of humanity. The three military vehicles and their soldiers narrowly escaped a disaster. But the number of mutated creatures in front of and behind them was overwhelming. The armored vehicle ahead had already suffered severe damage, crashing into a streetlight, and the soldiers on board quickly abandoned the vehicle. Amid the chaotic footsteps and dense gunfire, they retreated into a hot pot restaurant on this side of the royal city.